means you really understand
that as a placeholder in the template as well, just so that
stressful for the team to take on. All right, AI is worthless. Across the company, I think it's a bit.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to HR Summer School Day 2. We're so excited you're here with us. And George, I'm excited to see you, but man, I sort of miss seeing you like shoulder to shoulder. That was so much fun yesterday as a kickoff. So
yeah, I'll dry my eyes here for us, but it's great to be. Day 2 is here. We're in the middle of HR Summer School, the greatest virtual event worldwide. I am self-proclaiming that. And if anybody in the audience wants to back that up with an eye, a hand clap, a heart, then we can make it official here live today. Ben, what was something that you were very excited about yesterday as we were in person, but we also still had the virtual experience? It was kind of like a double portion of HR Summer School love, and inspiration for both of those, I'm sure.
Oh, my goodness. So, honestly, I think back, we'll show it in just a minute in our housekeeping notes and stuff this morning, but I got to meet so many good people there that were like, hey, listen, I've been to summer school every single year, and to me, that is so much fun to meet someone. I know you and I get out and we're speaking at events and people will come up to me and be like, hey, you're that guy from summer school. Like, yes, absolutely. And so that's so much fun because the whole reason we do these sorts of things is for those people, for all of you listening in. And so to me, when someone's like, I'm taking time out of my day, I'm coming all the way down here to Nashville. I'm coming from, our friend Norma came from Atlanta. I'm coming all the way over here to just be with you in person and to be with other people that care about doing this well. To me, that is the part of summer school that makes it so hard the rest of the year that I look forward to, probably why everybody else looks forward to it too. So that was my big thing that I latched onto yesterday, and I'll do it virtually today.
Yeah, it was such an incredible time. I had a great time, again, like you said, been in person and meeting some of the people that have been connected with us for so long. And then also first year students who just heard about it, still making that trip was an incredible, post lunch and headed home back here to Indiana, being able to look at all the posts that were hashtag HR Summer School. And we're going to show some of those, maybe 10 or 11 of those here in just a second. But I get inspired by the recap. And I mentioned that yesterday, the importance of why it is so incredible to not just be tagged, but also hear everybody's perspective, because there's different things from different sessions that everybody got together that was different. That was a different perspective and a different perception. It was incredible to be able to read some of those things in the recaps. And so continue to do that. Make sure you like, share, repost. If you're watching on LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you may be watching today, we would love for you to do those things because it's just a blessing, not just for others, but also for me selfishly.
George wants it. That's what I heard. George wants it. He wants it. GWI. There we go. There's our acronym for the day. So you got to catch up, George. Yesterday we were so focused on the in-person stuff, we missed any acronyms. So we'll have to get to those. So really quickly, again, day 2 here at summer school. Couple of quick shout outs. So yesterday we heard from Amy Mosher at iSolved. Great session around clarity, which kicked off this like 3 or 4 session conversation around clarity and the importance of that, which was so much fun. We heard from Jack at Take Command yesterday around benefits. Great sessions. Today we have Hi Bob coming up. I'm talking with Ken about some of the AI skills that are emerging and how we can build those without sacrificing the human part. Great conversation. And then we also will hear George had a great conversation with Yannick from Bucket List all around recognition. So that's one of George's favorite things to talk about. So we have those things to look forward to. And then tomorrow we have 2 or 3 other sessions we have Kim with Employee. We're going to talk today about some of the things that are happening around hiring and how we can use the tools we have to be more candidate centric. And so great discussion around that. And tomorrow we'll hear from Verified First and Cornerstone in their session. So thanks to them for supporting summer school. What else we got, George? Oh, this is like a surprise to me because I've seen this slide every time. So really quickly, I made this joke yesterday. It still happened. All right, go on, people. If you want to get a giveaway, you must be registered and show up and be engaged. We had somebody yesterday that won one. They're like, and you got to sign up in order to get that prize. So make sure you're registered. The link at the bottom, hrsummerschool.org, will get you there. You can sign up. It takes 30 seconds. If you were just happen to find the stream, like all of you, George just said, share the stream out. If someone finds it, welcome. We're glad you're here. It's a different kind of live stream. Sherman HRCI credits. I had someone reach out yesterday, 5 minutes after it was over, saying, where are my credits? You can't have the credits until the last day is done. So once day 3 is finished, we'll share all those out with everybody to get your 7.5 HRCI and Sherman credits. And then as we saw yesterday, those live stream timings are kind of approximate. The agenda will share, and you can see the agenda at any time at hrsummerschool.org. Same link there to register or see the agenda. But that's where you'll see the times for the sessions today. You can see what's upcoming, and those timings are approximate because live stream. All right. George, want to give some shout outs to all of our family out there?
Yeah, I'm always excited this is one of my favorite portions, right? Is good on LinkedIn or Facebook, wherever it may be. But shout out to Bobby Joe. One of my favorites is Bobby Joe because of the whole AI graphics, and you see myself, you, and her frantically in the audience. And then Ashley, one of our live attendees yesterday, posted as well. We had Data Man and Acronym Man that's done by Jeff. So some incredible things. Shout out to Wisconsin State Council, Sherm, also in the chat. They were there live in their group. They made a post. And then the veteran of all posts, Kenny Dang. You can always count on some good feedback there. There's so many other people. Now I'm naming all of them, and I'm going to forget one person, and they're going to reach out to us probably on that one. But so many great, and this is not even all of them, but these are just kind of a few key highlights that we wanted to post today. So continue to do those things. We're going to grab some more from today. We love those recaps. Make sure you use hashtag HR Summer School. We actually have an HR Summer School LinkedIn page. And so if you want to join on that one as well, make sure you follow that page as well, and tag it or myself and Ben. And, we're going to be excited to spend an hour or two after school is out. We have after school LinkedIn and social.
We got some homework to do. Yeah.
Some homework for sure. I went backwards.
Wrong direction, George. All
right. I'm going to go back.
We mentioned this yesterday. We have summer school shirts. George is wearing his, I don't know what color that is, George.
Kind of like a grayish.
Pavement, I think, was the actual technical term for that. I'm wearing an older summer school shirt, Feeding Your HR Soul. All those shirts are there available. You can scan the QR code and get those. I saw lots of comments yesterday, George, from people saying that ranch dressing one was one that they loved. And so, yeah, that one actually came from Amy Mosher, the one I spoke with yesterday from iSolved. She's the one who coined that term, and we made a shirt to honor her from that. So you can get any of those shirts if you'd like to. Those are going to be available. What's up next? Oh, yeah. So George is going to be at SHRM in a few short weeks. Goodness, it'll be here around the corner. So if you want to be there with George, you want to scan that QR code right there on your screen. I actually heard from someone just yesterday that said, hey, I followed summer school every single year. If you and George are going to be at SHRM, I said, well, it just so happens, here's your link. Go get this. And so you guys can see and connect with George there live. I'll be speaking elsewhere in the country, unfortunately, that day, and can't make it. But if you want some summer school love and be around a community that cares, you get to do that at SHRM. And so you can scan that and dive in. All right. George, quickly on the lunch break partners, just a quick shout out there.
Special shout out to our lunch break partners. As I mentioned yesterday, and a lot of people was wondering, what is HR Summer School lunch break and how can I get involved? You can visit hrsummerschool.org/lunch-breaks and get more information. We'll share that QR code in the chat and the link later on, but you're able to connect there. This is a members only platform. It's very private. It's monthly, where you receive your 1 hour SHRM HRCI credit, and we bring in fabulous speakers and incredible speakers panels. We cover all things. We've done mental health, well-being. We've done TA. We've done frontline. Onboarding is up next week. Actually, we're going to have a special guest. One of our good friends is now my good friend, but it was Ben's friend first. And the guru of all things onboarding, Miss Lillian, is going to be joining us, and we're going to be diving into driving engagement and retention from the start. It's going to be an incredible conversation. I'm excited about that. June 11th. So we come live every second Thursday, Ben, of the month, every second Thursday of the month for 1 hour lunch break. And it's HR Summer School in an hour. We dive in. And so we'd love to have you. If you're in part of a chapter state group on the board there, or individual you'd like to join individually, we welcome all, and it's a great time. Yesterday, Ben, we have one of our own. It was a great surprise. She was a speaker. She wasn't expecting it. We had a good opportunity to break bread with her afterwards as well. But we want to give one more shout out, maybe a couple more shout outs tomorrow as well. But Allison Smart, the director of HR, winning our 2026 Community Award. And just an incredible person, incredible heart, and giving so much back into the community. And not just HR Summer School. She's been involved within the area in Tennessee as well, Nashville area where she's from. And so shout out to Allison one more time for just being an incredible person, incredible heart, and now an award winner for HR Summer School.
It's official.
It's official.
Yes. Okay. So this is what you can expect today. We actually have something for you for just a few minutes before we get started today. Our first speaker will be Christine Beldner, as I mentioned earlier, or mentioned yesterday. Christine and I go way back. She was an HR leader that took a chance on me very early in my career, gave me a chance to really work with someone who cares about HR in a culture that was great, with leadership that supported us. And it was the springboard for everything that I got to do as an HR professional that mattered to me. So that was great. Ken and I are going to talk about AI skills. George and Abhijit are going to have a conversation about, goodness, what did you not talk about, George? Like, George is the one, like squirrels have squirrels. So they're going to have a great conversation. So great stuff today. Kim and I are going to talk talent acquisition. Yannick and George are going to talk about recognition. And then Emma is going to bring us home. Had a chance to meet Emma a while back virtually. And so had her come and join us because she has some great ideas around the importance of connection and thinking about that, continuing our theme for summer school, like every year, which is seeing our people as the humans they are and supporting them that way. So we'll wrap with that one today. Before we get to that stuff, though, I'm going to take just a moment. Again, live stream time's approximate, already going off the rails. It'll be okay. I'm going to pass the microphone to George, give him just a few minutes to share something that's on his heart. And then tomorrow, maybe I'll take the microphone back and, take a turn myself, but let George have just a few minutes to share. As I mentioned yesterday, both of us do a lot of speaking. We do a lot of training. We do internal workshops with companies. George does the keynote speaking thing where he gets the audience on their feet, cheering and clapping and stomping and everything. And so we're gonna give him just a minute here to kick us off. Give us a word, George.
Exactly, Ben. I'm excited about this, and I want to share, get ready. So just go ahead and get your acronyms lines ready. This is something that's been on my heart for about 3 or 4 weeks, and we're going to talk about it, right? We're going to break down the human aspect. So just get HUMAN down on your paper. Be ready for your first acronym of the day. Actually, I don't think I had an acronym yesterday at all. And so as I was thinking on my way home, what I want to talk about and share with y'all today, many of you were asking, what does ROY stand for? And recently I wrote a blog called The Real Competitive Advantage in Business is Purpose Alignment. I overheard a conversation of a gentleman, and he said, there's really no ROI in purpose. It's something that we should get over. And that really, as a person who loves people and lives a purpose-driven life, lives and believes that leadership, it should be purpose-driven, it really, really hit me and connected with me. And so I wanted to talk about that, because I believe purpose is not some soft initiative. It's really a strategic performance driver that I believe we should use. And real quickly, here are 5 things that I believe why the ROI really is within purpose, and why we should champion the purpose within our organization. Number one, I believe purpose increases retention, because people stay not just where they also belong, but they stay where they feel connected to something. They stay where they feel they have a meaningful purpose. The work they do means something to them. And there's a strong sense of that purpose that can be reduced because of disengagement. When we think about things that are not purpose-driven, when I don't feel connected to something I'm disengaged. I'm more likely to be burnt out. And really, you think about some of the other aspects of that, it's a costly turnover that happens. The second thing I believe is a ROI, and I say why intentionally, thanks to Ben Eubanks, is that I believe purpose accelerates performance. Employees who understand the why behind the work make better decisions. They collaborate more. They want to be connected. In a world of AI, where we're so dependent on AI supporting us, where there's purpose, there's a connection to people. I want to connect with Ben. I want to work with Ben. I want to communicate and have clarity, as we talked about a lot yesterday, and be able to have that transparency in the act behind the work that help us make better decisions. I think about number 3, purpose fuels innovation. When teams are emotionally connected to a mission, they stop working transactionally and they start thinking transformationally. And I'll say that again. When a team is emotionally connected to a mission, they stop working transactionally and they start thinking transformationally. Purpose truly creates ownership. Purpose truly creates this sense of connection, and ownership really drives innovation. Number 4, purpose strengthens culture alignment. Purpose becomes the filter for hiring. It becomes the filter for leadership. It becomes the filter for development and communication and decision makings. And it aligns with the people strategy with the business strategy. And so purpose strengthens culture alignment. Number 5, purpose builds organizational resilience. In a season of many of us dealing with uncertainty, we're dealing with compensation. We're dealing with the job huggers. All these things align together. When there's organizational resilience, when there's purpose gives people that sense of direction. It gives them more than just motivation. It gives them inspiration when challenges arrive. And so how do we do this? And I believe this is the state of where we are, the human performance framework by yours truly, if you will. Go back to your acronym, and I'm going to close with this. I believe it comes back to the future of work, which is human. And when I think about us as humans, I believe H is honor, contribution. How do we recognize people? How do we connect to people? How do we get our employees not just to buy in, but to literally live this purpose out? I believe it becomes when we honor contributions. People need visibility. People desire recognition, and the proof of their work truly matters. And so we honor the contribution. Once you honor contribution, I believe we must then take the next step and make sure that we understand employees' reality. Understand employee reality. What I mean by that is different workers populations experience work differently. Remote workers and deskless workers may experience it differently than you who are in office. And I believe the people that are farthest from the office shouldn't be so disconnected. And so we got to be able to understand employees' realities. M is for modernized leadership. I mentioned this yesterday. Oftentimes we're trying to use yesterday's leadership assumptions on today's realities, and then there's a gap there, and we have to modernize leadership as much as we can. And when I think about this is leadership behaviors. Leadership behaviors, things that Miss Angela shared with us yesterday. We must really truly evolve faster the organizational charts. And so making sure that our behaviors are aligned with those. A is for augment with AI, because what is a virtual or in-person conference without mentioning AI? But augment with AI. Technology should elevate human capabilities, not diminish humanity at all. And so we got to be able to align those things in together. And then N is for negotiate a new employee deal. Negotiate a new employee deal. The employee and the employer relationship is becoming more transparent, is becoming more personalized and expectation driven. And I believe that we, at the heart of all these things, have to be able to align those things together. So honor contributions, understand employee reality, modernize leadership, augment with AI, and negotiate a new employee deal where there's a connection there. Because quite frankly, I believe some of the strategic talking points that we have to have for those, especially as I mentioned yesterday, the introverts, the Georges in the back of the room that are silently working together, but quietly getting the recognition or lack thereof. The loudest employees often get that attention, while the dependable high performers are sitting clear in the back with their teams. And so recognition, growth opportunities, and support, and some of those strategic talking points I believe we should talk about, and you may hear it today, is dealing with burnout. How often it starts with invisibility, consistency, and frequently overlooking because it becomes expected in our work. And so for us as leaders, I want to encourage you as a leader, but also you as an employee, recognition is no longer a nice culture initiative. It's really the infrastructure for performance, retention, and trust. And so, Ben, join me back, my friend, because I believe this last line is important. I believe truly when contribution becomes invisible, disengagement becomes inevitable. And I'll say that again as we transition. When someone's contributions to the work they do become invisible, disengagement becomes inevitable. It's going to happen. And so we got to make sure we are human and staying connected with our people.
I was going to stay in the back and just let you go, George. I think you still had another good half hour in you before we had to stop you. But, I mean, maybe so. Goodness. Someone said, we're already on fire and we're like 20 minutes in. So here, goodness, I love it. So I have some good takeaways. You're going to go back and watch the chat, George, because people are loving the conversation there, loving the inputs. And my regret yesterday as we were finishing up was, as we finished, I said, man, we never got to talk about your name tag because you had written the ROY, right? And why that matters so much. So I love that you started off with that today. We call it a fire starter for a reason. So we're all ready to go. We're all primed and pumped up. I'm going to jump into this conversation with Christine Beldner. This is a good one for me. That's the one with you yesterday with Rod was a really good one. This one for me was a really good one. So here we go. Let's dive in. Everyone out there in HR Summer School land, I'm so glad you're here with us today and looking forward to another great day to cover some great topics, talk to some amazing people, and hopefully give you all some inspiration, some encouragement in the work you're doing every day. I am honored and privileged to be joined here by a longtime friend, my mentor, the person that I look up to the most in this world when it comes to HR, Christine Beldner. Christine, that's a big setup. Sorry, couldn't help it.
I know.
Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
A little tear.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad.
Thank you for having me. This has probably been a long time coming. You and I go back, I was thinking, to 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And so 18 or so years, we were babies. At least one of us was a baby. And special. And what a blessing it is that we've maintained a professional relationship and a personal relationship through this whole time. So
yes. Grateful for it. Absolutely. So before we get into some of the fun stuff we're going to be talking about today, we're going to talk about mentorship. We're going to talk about some of the things that you're seeing on the front lines as you're working with employers. Take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please.
Sure. My name is Christine. I serve as the Vice President and a Senior Human Resources Consultant for Ironwood Business Consulting. We support organizations of all size, but a lot of small to medium-sized organizations in areas like human resources, safety, all those regulatory compliance areas. And then, of course, I love the opportunity to help clients with leadership development, which is what we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. And at the center of what I do is people. I think that's super important right now. Definitely the theme of HR Summer School. We're finding HR is going way beyond policies and paperwork. We are at the front lines, right? Of uncertainty, change, burnout, AI, and we're still having to create these workplaces where we can all thrive. So I love what I do, and I love the organizations I get to work with.
So you set us up really well there. You got to do all that on top of your day job, by the way.
Yes.
So keep up with
That's
this
sure.
and all the other things that you're already juggling, trying to keep it all together. So as I've already pointed out a minute ago, I had the opportunity to work with you early in my career, pivotal moment. And because I'd had it almost a weird perspective of HR before that, working in a company that didn't really appreciate and respect it. And I had a chance to come and work with you. And it opened my eyes to what it could be like working in a company with a great culture, with a leader that poured into me, with a company leadership that believed in the people and supported them. So that mentorship meant a lot to me, sent me in a good direction, I would say. And so what advice would you give other leaders here listening to the audience, these HR, whether they have someone in their chain of command or they're in a volunteer capacity like you and I originally met or something else, they have a chance to mentor and encourage someone else early in their career. What advice would you give them?
Well, yeah, we were both very blessed at the organization that we worked at. And I was thinking about connecting with you today. And something that you may not realize, and I don't know if I ever told you, but I learned so much from you during that time. So it was a reciprocal relationship, right? And that's probably one of the big things that I would tell leadership in HR today is that have an openness to learn just as much as you give. But I have maybe a couple of things that I thought about today. First is that I think one of the biggest mistakes that leaders make is believing that mentorship has to be formal or perfect. I think what you and I found, it was not that at all. It was in the day to day of our work that we fed and nourished each other, professional development. I think it's about giving someone a seat at the table, trusting them before they trust themselves, maybe taking time before or after that interaction of a project or a meeting to explain the why behind a decision. I think, you know, when I look back at our time at that organization, is that the mentors we had there, they weren't teaching us the nuts and bolts of HR, right? They were modeling professionalism, courage, emotional intelligence, how to lead under pressure. And that was all informal, just in the nature of our work, but it was intentional. So being intentional in that day to day of going just beyond. I think saying to someone, I see potential in you, right? They took a chance on us. So that would be the first thing I would say. Second is stop expecting junior professionals and even probably senior professionals to already know everything. I see that a lot. I've hired them and now they should just be able to execute. We have no context of what training and development they've had up until that point. And so we have to bring clarity. We have to slow down and we have to be present. I'm not a big sports person, but this is where I find so many parallels to sports. Coaches don't just say, okay, I brought you on the team, now go win a game, right? Yeah, it's about taking the time for drill after drill to develop that muscle memory. The coach is there to provide vision and inspiration, and they don't just say it happens overnight. It is that investment day after day, time after time. And you can't say, well, I've already told them one time. It doesn't land, it doesn't stick, right? Listen, I'm a parent, tell any parent, it doesn't stick just one time. So people don't arrive with all they need in their toolbox. We have a responsibility to give it to them. And third, and probably the most important one that I think we have a responsibility to pass on is we have to have courage. And what I mean by that is we have to be willing to have difficult conversations. You have to, as a mentor and as a leader, be willing to give feedback. Listen, there's countless reasons why we avoid giving feedback. And I am guilty of it myself, whether it's our own insecurities, maybe we don't like having conflict or what can be perceived as conflict, or countless other reasons why we withhold feedback. At the end of the day, we are stifling the opportunity for improvement, for growth and development. We're robbing our employees, our junior HR professionals from reaching their full potential. And so if you do nothing else, that is unfair and it's a disservice. So it doesn't mean that feedback should be cold or lack meaning. It should be tactful and, again, like I said, intentional before. There is an art to giving feedback, but avoiding it or not doing it is hurting everyone. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I'm trying to figure out which thing I wanted to come back to and comment on.
I know, sorry.
Good pieces in there.
Yeah.
When you said the very first bit, you started off with, it doesn't have to be formal to be effective. Yeah. And I go back to little things that you have probably long forgot that would be just a quick side moment where you said something that was so profound to me, right? And to you, it's just one more day, one more comment. But to me, it connected with something I needed right then. It's like when the student's ready, the teacher appears and suddenly like, oh, that lesson finally landed. And there are so many moments like that I can think of and go back to. And I've kidded here on summer school before about like my communication style is very direct. And you're like, no, you have to add the fluff in there. You have to be like a friend and be a person that people want to interact with, because when they have a trouble, you don't want them to see you as a cold, calculating person. You want them to see as the person I can go to and approach. You're approachable. But it's little things like that just in the moment
Mhm.
that to me connected to, okay, this changed how I do this forevermore, not just a one-time little moment. So
Mhm.
that weaves through several of the things you talked about there about not knowing where someone's coming from or saying, hey, listen, this is uncomfortable, but the way you did that is not the right way, but you can do it the right way. I believe in you. I know
Yeah.
you can do it, but I need to see that from you. And here, take another shot at it. And that combination of things is something I've had privilege of being on the receiving end of. And I hope people out there listening right now are taking notes, because that sort of thing in the moment, yes, it's awkward. It's probably supposed to be awkward. It feels weird, right? It's much easier to just clap for people. But we don't clap for when they're doing the wrong thing, right? We don't clap
Yeah.
for the ones that mess up. We want to clap for them when they succeed, and they have to get there through the instruction like you were talking about. That has to be there.
I think some of our best sessions was probably just driving in the car to grab a lunch or something. And that's how informal it was. I can think of several of those times where you were my sounding board or vice versa, and we were unpacking a problem, and driving was our best approach. But I think you reminded me of something, is that when we are giving feedback, it's easy to just maybe say, I didn't like how you do this, but then we stop there and don't provide solutions or other alternative approaches. And so I think that's equally important. Like, don't just bring me problems, but bring me solutions. The same goes with feedback. When you're providing some of that feedback, give alternatives, give ideas, be part of the solution. So,
Okay. All right. So we've covered some really good stuff there around the leadership piece, around mentoring. I want to shift gears just a little bit, because in your position, you get to talk with a lot of company leaders, probably HR leaders that are your counterparts at these companies internally, and you're working with a bunch of different ones. What are some of the things that you're seeing as consistent themes that companies are really struggling with right now on the people side?
well, it's so timely. I think companies continue to have to do more with less. And there's this tension between efficiency and humanity. And I think leadership is frustrated, and I think our workforce is frustrated, and we really are not sure how to navigate today together. Technology is advancing incredibly fast. AI is definitely changing our workflows and how we do things. Expectations are higher. So we see organizations want speed, they want output, they want results, but employees still want to be seen, want to be valued, want to be developed, they want to be connected. And so, how do we meet in the middle? And even with AI, we can't automate culture, we can't automate emotional intelligence. That's why the future of work is human, right? And there's still a place for us here. So I think the challenge is going to be investing in communication, investing in coaching. I'm seeing a desperate need for coaching and mentorship right now. Investing in trust, accountability, healthy leadership habits are going to be critical in the next decade. We all know that employees don't leave organizations, they leave managers. And so, how are managers going to allow a space for technology to be used appropriately and not be fearful of it, but also give it left and right limits? So, that's what I'm seeing today. That's a lot of what we're talking about with my clients.
I'm thinking about, we just finished a piece of research recently and asked companies about, are you trying to use AI in your people processes? And 80% of companies told us they've tried and they've had trouble with it to some degree. And so we followed up with those people. We said, okay, of you 80%, what were the problems? And 80% of those problems came down to people and process issues, not the technology itself. And so for me, the problem is AI seems so smart that you just turn it on and let it go. But as you just pointed out, like, there's all these issues with trust. There's issues with this pressure to be efficient, but hey, we're not giving you training on how to do it, but just go do it. And that all those sorts of things are piling on top of people. And so we're calling it the 80-80 problem, where the majority of companies are struggling, and they're struggling on the people side. That means more work for us, maybe job security, but it also means an opportunity to step into some of the things you were just talking about, to help leaders cast a vision, to help hold people accountable, to decide what those safeguards are, and all those sorts of things. If we don't take that step, take that role in this, I'm worried about what happens next if we don't.
So a peer and I were recently talking. He just attended a conference, and it was a conference for CEOs, and a big topic was AI, of course. And there was a speaker that talked about a study of what large businesses are doing, because typically large businesses go first, right? And then the other organizations follow behind. And what they're seeing at large organizations in HR is that HR is becoming responsible for AI agents, and they're treating AI agents as employees, like an employee count. Your
Mhm.
employee number 1071 AI agent. And so HR, you need to be ready for that, because we are going to be the front lines of the blend between our human resources and our technology resources for the first time. And Ben, it's because of exactly what you just said, is that technology is being rolled out in organizations and then it's forgotten about. And so organizations are losing sight of their AI employees, if you will, and they realize, oh, we have to manage them just like we have to manage employees. And so now they're part of our workforce. And so as HR, how are we going to navigate being responsible for humans and our non-humans in our workforce? We are going to be at the cusp of this, and we have to be prepared. And I find that fascinating.
Yes. Lots of people might use different words to describe that, Christine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we choose, right? We get to choose. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
We get to choose the attitude with which we approach it. And
Yeah.
fascinating, right? Exciting. It's an opportunity. Let's see it as
It
that,
is.
and not just a challenge in front of us. Okay.
Yeah.
You sort of teed into the theme for summer school this year a moment ago, but I wanted to give you a chance more than any of our other speakers. I love you all, by the way, but more than any speakers, I wanted to give you this chance to tell us
Yeah.
what does the future of work as human mean to you?
Oh, it's great. Listen, you're right. There is a lot of people that perhaps are not ready to embrace the AI or the technology transition that we're going through right now. And I get it. I understand it. I understand the fear and the skepticism. I will say this, what I see the best uses of it is AI can definitely be that great personal assistant. It can summarize meetings, it can draft policies perhaps with oversight. It can analyze data, but we still need very much all of us. We bring empathy, we bring belonging, we bring ethical leadership, we bring difficult conversations, we bring purpose. And so it's not humans versus technology, it's humans leading wisely alongside of technology. It's 100% what I believe. How can we equip our workforce to use technology and AI as part of their toolkit, their toolbox, and not something that is adversarial? I think that's our responsibility. That is where we as humans belong.
I would clap for you, but I don't want to make it awkward here on that. So I love the,
Okay.
I love the opportunity that we have. Again, I keep hearing that come through as the very first answer around this mentorship opportunity in front of us, the opportunity to step in, because it's much easier, by the way, we'll admit this, it's much easier to stay in your lane, to not reach out and give it additional help or assistance. Everybody's plenty busy. You don't need other things to do. But every time I've talked to someone who has reached the end of their career in the HR space, and I've had the opportunity to interview so many great people who have retired out, and I said, listen, look back over your career. What are you most proud of? There's not a single one of them that said, you know what, I really got the most things done of anybody else on the team. Look at how productive I was. And invariably, every one of them, the people, the relationships, the connections, those were the things that they look back on and are grateful for at the end of their 4, 5, 6 decade career in HR. Like, people have been around for a long time doing this. And to me, that is reinforced through everything that you shared today. Any final comments or last words before we wrap up?
Well, I'm not at the end of my career yet, I would like to think. But I will say I couldn't agree with them more, because today is a highlight for me. Being present with someone that has been a peer and a lifeline to me. It's when some of my former colleagues reach out to me and say, you made a difference in my career. That makes a difference. And technology is not going to change that. Technology is not going to reach out to me and say, thanks, Christine, for what you typed in. So we still very much have connection.
Goodness. I love it. Such a great call out there. If people want to follow you, want to connect with you, just want to be in your circle and see what you're up to, what's the best way for them to do that?
Definitely LinkedIn. Reach out to me. I love connecting with HR professionals. I love sharing. I could sit and talk with you all day today, but we have a time limit.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining me for the impact now and for the impact for all this time. I do mean what I said earlier when you set me on a different path in the best possible way. And I'm grateful to know you, grateful to call you a friend, and grateful to still today.
Same. I'm blessed by you.
All right. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more summer school, maybe less emotional, but good nonetheless. Coming right up. George, I told you after yesterday, right? You got a chance to talk to Rod, and it was powerful to see you two interact, and even me sitting here behind the scenes watching this conversation with Christine again and being able to appreciate it through that lens. It means so much to me that she said yes, she'd come back, right? But that she was willing to come back. I went back in my head. I don't know if you did this yesterday talking to Rod, but I went back in my head to all those conversations we had working together. When I hear her talking and speaking carefully, deliberately about why we have to care about people and why this stuff matters, and hearing about leadership, I was back again, like sitting across from her at the desk in the office and like my notebook out in my HR days right there through that conversation. And it was so powerful to me to be back together. And I think the last comment I dropped in, and I'll be quiet for a minute. Last comment I just dropped in a minute ago on LinkedIn was, none of us are as strong, are as capable, are as smart as all of us. And that's what I get coming back from that one, going full circle with Christine.
Yeah, I'll say this, Ben. I got a loudspeaker. My speakers finally started working. And I think all the dogs in my cul-de-sac is, I don't know if y'all can hear it or not, but it's like when she made the statement on the importance of understanding humans and technology, that alignment piece there, it was like all the dogs in the cul-de-sac just started, roaring. So for all the dogs out there, and I'll come up with an acronym for that to align with HR here in a second. But like in unison, I think it's important as we talk about the future of work. I don't want to diminish the impact and value that technology can have for us. And there's aspects of the business that we definitely need to maximize with efficiency. And so it's not a fear tactic, but it's one of those things that she mentioned. And we had this conversation recently, and you had a conversation. We've had this conversation where somebody's come and said, Ben, George, AI is not going to hug me. AI is not going to come and say, hey, I know you're having a bad day. We had this last year, right? Caitlin, I believe Caitlin Sampson mentioned it as she was speaking with us live in person, where she was trying to balance, being there live with us, and her boss said, hey, listen, if you need support for your children, let us know. AI is not going to say, hey, I'm going to fill in and babysit your children. And so understanding just the importance of, when we talk about human and technology, it's, let's not try to replace what can never be replaced, right? Let's not try to bridge a gap that's not meant to be bridged, but connect and use it. How can AI elevate us, right? How can AI make us more efficient with the aspect of, I still want to hug, man. AI didn't hug me yesterday after the event was over. Nope. But man, a dozen or so HR Summer School alumni 100% did. And those are the meaningful things that really keep us connected on a deeper relationship. And you can see that in that conversation with you and Ms. Christine. So it was incredible session. All right.
We're going to transition. We're going to go to the session with Ken Matos from HiBob. That transition there, George, was a good one, because he's going to talk about some of the ways that we can use AI, some of the skills that we need to have, because like it or not, this is the part of work that's changing. We have to build skills to be able to use these tools. And strangely enough, they're also like, hey, by the way, HR, you also need to make sure that the people in the workplace have the skills around this. And so Ken's going to talk to us about some of those things there around that. And we're going to bring it back. I forced him to come back at the end, and he would have, but we came back around to the future work is human, and asked him to bring me some insight around that one. So we come full circle in this one. So let's jump in with Ken from HiBob. So excited you're here with us today, and having one of our like, I guess I don't want to call you an alumni, Ken. I guess you're like our adjunct professor that keeps coming back because you're so good. So many good things to share. So I'm excited to be here with Ken Matos from HiBob. We're going to be talking about the AI skills, what's happening in that space, how employers are thinking about those. Ken has some really cool data to share on that front. So welcome, my friend. Glad you're here.
Always glad to be here. Thanks for having me back.
For sure. Hey, I learn something every time I talk to you. I always walk away feeling like, wow, the world is full of possibility. So excited about that. So before we get into some of the fun stuff you and I will be kicking around, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Absolutely. So I'm Ken Matos. I'm the director of the Insights Lab at HiBob. So we are a CM platform. We cover everything from your HRIS support to your learning and development activities, payroll, and pretty much all of your HR needs under one sun, along with your finance FP&A.
Wonderful. Good stuff. Okay. And then you are the resident expert on all things data. You and I share a love of research, and not just data for its own sake, but what does it tell us to do? And so it's always fun to get together. So you've actually had the chance to work on some new research around AI skills. Tell us a little about that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I was noticing was a lot of people were talking about needing to have employees who were skilled with AI. But when I asked them, well, what does that mean? What are you going to put in a performance review? What are you using for hiring criteria? What are the behavioral markers of this? They all kind of froze up and got very scared looks in their faces. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect. I love it when people give me that face because that means that something is worth digging into. So I spent a bunch of time talking to subject matter experts and surveying 1,200 AI skills decision makers. So these are people who were making decisions about what skills their companies wanted or needed, how they were going to answer those questions that I was talking about, and had them identify key behaviors in AI management that they thought were most important for their organizations, that they would pay more for, that they thought were hard to hire for, and then turn that into a skills framework that you can use to fill out and answer those kinds of questions.
So you've got the perfect audience here to answer the question. What were some of the things that came out of that?
So I think it helps to just talk through the framework first, where we basically ended up with a collection of 3 competencies and 7 skills. So we broke things down into first AI readiness. So this was a combination of literacy and a continuous learning orientation. So literacy means you really understand what AI does and what it doesn't do. I think a lot of our challenges is that many people working with AI still think it's magic, that they don't understand that it makes mistakes, when it makes mistakes, when it doesn't make mistakes, how to limit that. Likewise, AI is an organic technology, which is very different from the more rigid things that do a specific function in a specific way, the same way over and over again. And so that means you have to be much more open to experimentation, to transformation, to what you did today not being what you do tomorrow. And that can be really difficult for a lot of people, especially those who pride themselves on expertise. And so being able to focus on learning over expertise becomes really important. And that's not to say that knowing stuff doesn't matter. It really does for reasons I'll talk about in a moment. But that emotional willingness to engage with change is an essential skill that a lot of people are struggling with right now. The second bucket is your personal AI use. And that's where I think a lot of people are a little bit clearer. Can you write a good prompt? Can you interpret the data that it spits out and make sure that it's correct? And then are you doing this in a way that is maintaining appropriate AI safety and data governance rules? I think a lot of our attention is there right now. The third spot, and the one that I think people are not quite paying enough attention to yet, is the organizational use of AI. And so this is, how do you stitch together all of those individual processes so you don't end up with app sprawl? I mean, we talk a lot about spreadsheet sprawl, where you just get more and more spreadsheets. If you want to have your AIs deliver real value, they need to integrate with one another. They need to integrate with your processes. They need to actually smooth out what you're doing and not create more edges. And then some basic technical skills that help support your ability to do that. And so that created our sort of 3x7 framework, each of which has a list of behaviors that make it a lot more concrete.
So I'm listening to this. I'm making my own notes over here on this. I'm going to go back to a couple of these things. If you're good with that, because I first just to unpack this with you live. And so that's the comment about this being an organic sort of thing. I think that's so telling, because in the past it was, this is a fax machine and this is how you work it. And once you work it, it's going to work the same way tomorrow and next month and next year. But as you said, this technology is very different, because we'll have a sudden leap forward, or the model changes, or suddenly that thing that you used to do, you can't do that anymore, because it's going to give you not just the same result, but a worse result because it changed. Do you think people broadly have that willingness to, or ability to do that change? Or it feels to me like that's almost, I feel like you got to find that in people. It's not a thing that everybody has. Or is it trainable? Sorry, random off the cuff question, but what are your thoughts?
No, I think it's a great question. I don't want to say it's completely untrainable. I do want to say I do think it's mostly like, it's like motivation. People can come to something and the motivation comes from themselves, but you can erode motivation really easily. I think similarly, people can be curious and open to experimentation, but you can destroy that really easily by making the stakes of experimentation very high. I think that's one of the challenges that we're having right now, is with all the things that are going on, the idea of being handed a tool that has as much power as AI, but also as much lack of certainty as AI, is really uncomfortable for people in the midst of affordability crises, when they're hearing about layoffs. And so I think there's a challenge that organizations have to not just find people with the right mindset, but to make sure they protect that mindset from being eroded by the background noise.
I don't know there was a right answer to that one. I was just like, I wanted to get your take on that, because you've analyzed humans and how they work and how they behave at work for quite some time. And so I was like, whatever Ken says is going to be good here. The other thing I come back to, I'll swap you a data point here that you'll appreciate. So we just finished a piece of research and we asked companies in their talent process, have you tried to use AI and did you have trouble with it? And 80% of companies said they had trouble trying to integrate that. And we asked a follow-up. You and I both know this. The audience here probably knows this, but everybody else in the world would be like, oh, really? 80% of companies had trouble. 80% of those troubles came down to people or process issues, not the technology itself. So the technology was like 20% of the time. 80% of the time, it was something around the people, the process. And I don't know why this is. We feel like it's so smart. It's like a light switch. We just turn it on and it's good to run. But it's a lot more than that. And you sort of keyed in on that, talking about the importance of being curious, the importance of being willing to experiment, even the personal use, the different layers of skill involved in not just prompting, but being able to analyze that and filter it through your critical thinking and say, you know what, that sounds sort of right, but not all right, and all those sorts of things. So that data point to me really to support some of the things you're sharing there about how this has to be a people thing. We have to think about it in a very careful way, or we're going to end up with something we don't want ultimately.
Yeah, I think one of the really good examples of that popped in when I was asking for behaviors that I didn't prompt people on. One of the ones that popped out of the open-ended comments was the ability to interpret what AI puts out. They were referencing graphs and charts, because AI makes it really easy to produce content, but that doesn't necessarily make it right. And even if it's technically correct, do you understand it? Do you know what to use it for? I think we've been so focused on training people to create the report that now everyone who can create the report in a few seconds, they all need to focus on what's the meaning of the report. Where do we go with this? And then there's also questions of, I might know what to do with it, but it doesn't mean I have the authority to do anything with it. So now I have to talk to 15 people who all have their own things going on and get them to align. And so I think one of the things that was interesting in our data was I asked what was hard to hire for and what would you pay more for? And what we saw that people were willing to pay more for, that was also difficult to get, was all about reliability and quality control. But what they said was hard to hire for, but they were not yet paying for, was the ability to see a workflow design, to be able to understand all those processes that you described. And so I'm like, oh, I'm not surprised that organizations are struggling with exactly where you're talking about, because they've already, money, where they pay for is what they value. And they've just shown us that's not what they're focusing on.
We have an incredible person on our team that's really good at seeing the workflows of things. And that's one of the skills I've realized, like, I need to get better at that one, because she's really good at, okay, it started with this sort of raw thing and it ended up over here and then all these other steps in the middle. I'm like, I'm used to seeing either the raw stuff, the data on the back end, or the finished thing, but some of her thinking around how to get to a better output was incredible. And again, that sort of thing, to me, as you said, the data show, that's going to be an important skill. The other part to me that was fun, you said a minute ago, being able to ask the why, see why we're doing these things, not just, yes, I can produce things. Like, maybe we need to stop producing so much. Okay. Maybe it's so easy to stop producing so much. We don't need more slop. We just need good, right, correct answers and real context and insights. And again, that's one of the things that you and I have loved kicking around over the last year or so is lots of time companies are drowning in data, but they are starving for insights. They really need to know the next thing to do and not just, here's 2 more reports, 10 more reports, 15 pages of content that may or may not tell you what to do, but it's buried in there on page 7. Good luck finding it.
Yeah, one of the eye-opening moments for me with the research was I had designed it around non-technical employees. Had this starting assumption that like the engineers building LLMs and tech tools are different from all the other employees that were saying, go forth and use AI. And I showed it to a few engineers and I was like, oh yeah, you probably need more about like the technical AI things. And like, no, you don't need any more buckets. You don't need any more spaces. We're struggling with everything you have here. For example, we're producing so much more code. We don't have time to process it, to QC it, to link it together. And so we're drowning in productivity. And I think this is one of the places where we've forgotten something we learned with manufacturing, where it's not just about your ability to produce stuff. It's about also make sure that stuff is quality, that the process is efficient, and that the amount that you have created has a market to go into. And I think our beginning childlike infatuation with AI has really focused on just, look how quickly I can make things. And now we're beginning to get to the more mature phase of, I can make it fast, but does it all have a place to go? Is it all good enough to actually go to that place? And is this actually the best way to do it?
I'm going to go back and repeat what you said a minute ago because I thought that was so profound. We are drowning in productivity. I've not heard anyone else talk about it that way. And so everybody needs to make sure. And when you share that one on LinkedIn, everybody, make sure you attribute Ken with that one. That's a really good one. I am reminded of the operations management class that I took many years ago where they say, listen, you solve this bottleneck and it just moves. Like there's always going to be some bottleneck somewhere in a system and it just moves somewhere else. And that's what you're saying. We've solved it on the creation end, but now we've offloaded that somewhere else. I wanted to ask you, for the audience here, a bunch of HR leaders, all of our friends out here, what does it look like when suddenly they're able to produce more than they could in the past? If suddenly they can produce 1.5 times what an HR manager could in the past, right? I'm trying to picture that future. That bottleneck moves for them probably somewhere else. Does it come back around to relevance, context, understanding the business? What does that mean for what's next?
So at HiBob, we like to talk about being able to serve 3 different domains. So operations, culture, and strategy, where operations is very technical, data storage, motion, reporting. Strategy is all the things that you should be doing to drive the business forward. And culture is how you get people to do those things that your strategy, based on your operational data, says you should do. And I think AI is going to be exceptionally influential in the space of operations. There's so many things that we know we just, if A, then B, if C, then D. AI allows you to set that up with a lot less programming effort. And I think that creates a lot of operational opportunities. It makes it easy to say, hey, AI, my executive is asking this complex question that's basically a bunch of regressions. Can you just do those right now? I think the era of it's going to take a week for me to go pull some spreadsheets, do some pivot tables, yada, yada, to answer these executive questions is probably coming to an end. And we're moving much more towards being able to be more real time, being able to have processes self-execute on a lot of those levels, especially for things that don't have immediate negative repercussions, where if the AI does do something a little bit wonky, you can just fix it. I think where HR teams really want to spend their time, if they're being successful with minimizing time on operations, is culture and strategy, and being able to say, given all this data that we now can plumb at scale in real time, I can start affecting the decisions that the organization makes. All the ones that are influenced by who we hire, how we develop them, where are we going, how do we keep them from going over to our competitor with all our secret knowledge? And then being able to lean into how do I actually get them to do those things? So there's so much time that I know HR people want to spend on real value opportunities, but they can't because they're the foundation on which a bunch of other stuff stands. And if you can slide AI into that position and move out from being everyone else's foundation, it gives you the opportunity to be a leader and an influencer in a way that you've just not had time to do before.
I like that one a lot. That level of contributing to the areas that always end up at the bottom of your to-do list, even though they're important, they get pushed down with, I've got to finish this investigation. I've got to post that requisition. I've got to reconcile the statement. It's yes, but is culture important? Absolutely. Yep. Right. Is developing a leadership succession plan? Absolutely. That's important. Yes. But we're struggling to get to those things because we have this other stuff. So I've been putting more time into that. I want to ask you one last question, if you don't mind, on this that I think would be super awesome to get an answer on before we wrap up towards the end here. All this has been positive. We're sharing lots of good things. You had some cautionary bits, I think, earlier on, but what should we be wary about? What should they be concerned with? Or, hey, listen, this is where you're likely to trip. Keep your eyes open for that. Any suggestions or insights on that front?
So one thing that we also did was ask who should be responsible for training people on AI skills. And we offered everything from the tech companies themselves to your direct managers to local community activities. And the thing that popped to the top of the list globally, and it does vary by specific region, but overall, managers were cited as the people most responsible for training employees on AI skills. We also asked, if you said this group, do you think they're actually good at it? And that managers were the lowest rated in terms of being able to do the thing among the people who said it was their responsibility to do it. So it's not like it was low because you think somebody else should be doing it. It's, I think they should do it, and I think they're bad at it. And I think that is, for me, the biggest cautionary tale of what it means to be a manager is going to fundamentally shift, at least for a little while, where it's not about what you know and how you've gotten in replicating yourself. It's going to be much more about your ability to coach, to create space, to push people to have bigger thoughts and not slot themselves in the narrow box. I think that is such a shift from what so many managers get rewarded for and punished for not doing, that we're going to see a lot of friction there, especially as they are also subject to their own mid-management layoffs and questions about, like, do we want larger spans of control? Okay, well, then I have less time to talk to people. So I think we're going to have a moment of tightening the belt on the middle management layer. And then this is going to expand again once we're able to wrap our heads around what we really want managers to be doing, now that information can move around, but judgment, creativity, strategic meaning making becomes so much more important.
Ken, I wish we had another hour to dig into all this. So many good takeaways, insights, ideas from this. So if someone wants to learn more about the research that you and the team have done, more about what HiBob is doing in the marketplace to help employers, what's the best way for them to connect?
You can follow me at Dr. Ken Matos at LinkedIn. You can also go to our website at hibob.io and check out our blogs and research. We'll be dropping our reports and a lot of content around the AI skills, including an upcoming AI skills assessment tool online that people can use sometime in July.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you again for joining us. Coming back in, George. So one of the things that gets, hold on, where do we go? There we go. One of the things in that gets me is the audience responded when Ken said we are drowning in productivity. That was like, there were several people that climbed on, connected to that one. And it reminds me of this conversation we've had in the bigger labor market in the last few years, where the number of job openings, the number of people that are quitting, like the data around that is sometimes unclear or doesn't feel like it's accurate. feel like we need better measurements, and we feel like we need a better measurement for the capability at work besides just productivity. Right? Some jobs you have to produce a number of widgets on the assembly line, sure, but for the work that most of us are doing, or any sort of knowledge work, just producing something and being productive there isn't the full measure. I could have been very productive at putting together summer school this year and just grabbed a bunch of people and threw them in, and don't think it would have turned out quite as well, right? We can be productive and throw people into jobs quickly, but we're not going to have a high quality of hire. And so just being productive doesn't feel like it's the right metric anymore.
Yeah. I was thinking about a conversation really recently about not just the productivity of that, but going back to conversations yesterday where employees are really operating in this constant state of uncertainty. And when I think about uncertainty, I'm talking, not just lack of productivity, but also thinking about the layoffs or restructuring, AI disruption, all these different things. And you throw in the economic vitality that's really weakened a lot of organizations, right? And when I say weaken the organizations, I'm not talking about a monetary, I'm talking about the trust aspect of that. And employees don't expect certainty anymore, right? But they do expect honesty. My grandma used to tell me, George, the only thing certain is uncertainty. And I believe we're at that stage as employees where we don't necessarily expect certainty. We don't expect the thing to always happen or the thing to always work, but we do expect honesty. We talked about it yesterday. We heard clarity popped up so many different times. And I think it's our duty. When I heard listening to you and Ken, there were so many different things that came to my mind. And all I can think about is in any of those aspects, especially the importance of the skills. When we as leaders stop talking, or when leadership goes silent, silence from leadership creates more anxiety. It creates more narratives. We start thinking and assuming on our own, and we know what assuming does. And I believe trust is now built through that transparency that we talked about yesterday, consistency, communication cadence. And I'll close my thoughts with this point to wrap up what I took away from Ken and you conversating with, what we talked a lot about again yesterday is that trust. And I truly believe trust is becoming, and I said yesterday, trust is becoming the defining currency of leadership, and how we are clear in training, developing, and impacting our people when it comes to AI and skills, and clarity is so important.
Your performance as an organization, your performance as the team will never outpace the level of trust that you have. Yeah. That will always govern that and limit that. If you've got high trust, you can accomplish some pretty incredible things. Low trust, no one's going to put in the effort. No one's going to believe that you're not going to, or someone's going to take their idea, right, and run with it, or steal their suggestion. So high trust is a prerequisite for high results. I'm trying my George is the mic. I'll throw it out there.
It's not perfection. It's not certainty. It's trust, right? And so I truly believe, Ben, that employees, and I'm putting myself on the other side of the table, right? Mentally prepare myself as if I'm an employee. I can cope with difficult decisions faster than I can cope with confusing leadership.
Okay. You and I are going to riff on this all day. It connects back Christine's session, number 1 today. She said, leaders have to realize that it doesn't have to be very formal and very perfect.
Yeah.
Because it just won't be, right? It's people. It won't be.
Yep.
But when your heart's there, when trust is there, right, you can do some pretty incredible things. Okay. Next up, you want to give a 30-second quick intro or teaser for this next session, or do you just want to dive into it with Abhijit?
Abhijit, listen, I met this young fella. It was a great conversation through a mutual friend at a previous conference, and just his energy and passion for people, growth, developing, especially as many of us may be in a career change. We talked your first, I think a lot about the conversation he shared with me and talking about your career change and how impactful Christine was. This is going to be a conversation diving into those who are looking at transitioning, looking at growing, cross-skilling, upskilling. That's all I'm going to say.
Let's get into it. Here we go.
I am excited right now for this conversation with a good friend. We recently met just last month at a conference and had a great time there. But if you could, for the audience that are joining us all over the world, introduce yourself real quickly to the audience.
Sure.
Tell them a little about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much, George. Yeah, it was lovely. I mean, I think we spoke briefly, and I instantly knew that this was something that I wanted to do. My name is Abhijit Bhaduri. I've worked in human resources for all my career, so I'm a one-trick pony. I enjoy writing, so I write a lot on LinkedIn. So those of you who are interested can follow me on LinkedIn. I write a newsletter there, which also has all the kind of stuff that I'm going to talk about today, but in probably greater detail. And the way I was thinking about it is a couple of things that I think are going to shape the profession. So how would I structure that? That's how I thought about it. So excited to do this. My last role was at Microsoft. I was heading learning and development for them as a global partner for Microsoft. I was an employee there, and I work out of Seattle. My previous employers have been PepsiCo, Colgate, Tata's. So that's a lot. I think I should just pause.
A future-proof career, and that's something that you're really passionate about, the learning, development, the coaching aspects of it. But before we get diving into that conversation, finish this sentence for me, if you will. The future of work is human when?
We are all able to realize our potential.
Love it. Love it. Take us a little bit deeper on that, because I think about potential, right? In the sense of, I always say potential is like that Christmas gift that's wrapped up, but everybody knows what it is. You know what it is. It's something that you ask for. For me, I remember when I wanted a drum set, because I was very passionate about teaching myself drums. And you can't really disguise drum set unless you keep it in a box, but you want it set up. You want your child to really be able to explore and be able to play with that gift during Christmas. And so I always treated potential as that gift that you know what it is, but it's useless until you use it, right? It's useless until you put it to work. Explain a little bit more about the future work is human when we realize our potential and what you mean.
What has happened is I've been working on my next book, which is about identity as it is getting shaped in the world of AI. So everything that I is based on the research that I've done for this book. So broad idea is this, that we have historically lived in this world where our identity has been designed and given to us. Somebody else designed it and gave it to us. So there are three elements. One is interchangeability, because when in the factory system, the assembly line system, the industrial age, that actually has shaped so much of the work practices, and hence they are obsolete. One of them is that interchangeability matters a lot when you're trying to scale up something. So think about a factory. Anything that I do, if I've created this little post-it piece, it doesn't matter whether you worked on shift one, I shift two, it needs to look exactly like this all the time. So that is the industrial age mindset, where we say interchangeability, which means we hire people based on a predetermined criteria. You need to have 5 years experience. 4.5 is not good enough. 6 is too much. You need to be exactly 5 years. You need to have this degree, this credential, this. And all of those assumptions that we are looking at have now been proved to be obsolete. We can talk about in greater detail, but interchangeability is one. Two, it is credential driven, that you either have graduated from these 5 colleges, in which case you have a preference, you are really great, I love you, but otherwise everybody else is not good enough. So that's your second mindset, which is to be questioned. And the third element of that is it is employer driven. If I tell you I work for a company that you've heard of and admired, you would say, wow, you must be really smart. If I tell you I work for a company which is small, you've never heard of it, you kind of think that I didn't do much in life. All three are completely wrong assumptions. I worked with people and exploring this whole aspect of potential. That's what led me to write this. This is a time where we need to actually think of our potential more, not like a block of ice. If you sort of really think about it, that it's not frozen, it's fluid. The moment you sort of do this, you really start thinking about, what do I do? What do I do which is purely mine? And that could be based on multiple things. So that's really the way to design your identity, as opposed to live with somebody who's given you a certain kind of identity and it's a box. So you don't have to live in the box. And AI actually gives you that option. So I look at it as a trigger where we can fulfill our potential because I draw a lot. If you go on to LinkedIn, you'll see almost all the articles that I do, they are illustrated by me. I
Nice.
just, never could get a chance to get enough time to start painting. It was limited to the weekend. Then I thought, how do I bring this into the work that I do? So when I would design slides, I would put in my drawings. When I wrote an article, I put in my drawings. That way, I combine my hobby in the work that I do. That's a broad model that I'm sort of really talking about, that you can actually bring in so much of yourself into the work that you do. And we are in an age where some of the work which we thought, if it is logical, if it can be repeated, can be all that, AI can do it much better than us. So we don't compete with AI on that. We compete with AI on everything where there is no data set. The way you and I are talking about it, you don't know what's the next sentence I'm going to speak. Neither do I know about it. This is things that are going to remain human. And I think the opportunity, we get dismayed when we hear about layoffs and Meta's laying off 6,000 people and all of that. We know about all this happening. But what we really don't think of this as an opportunity. We don't, because it's just bad news. Actually, I would think that this way of working is becoming completely, it's breaking down. And we need to start thinking about ourselves as unique. And that uniqueness is what makes you irreplaceable in this world of work. So the simple thesis, if you are unique, it is impossible for AI to replace you. Because AI actually relies a lot on data. So, for example, to train a fully self-driving car, you need 10 billion miles of data of driving. But human beings don't need 10 billion miles of driving to do this. You've probably done it after driving for a couple of days, and then you started to drive yourself and do all that. So there are things we do which is uniquely you, and that's based on everything that you've done in the past, your successes, failures, dreams, future, today. All of that together creates a unique combination which is impossible for AI to replicate. So that's where the opportunities will be. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I love that you took it from potential to purpose, right? And aligning not just what you're doing, what you're capable of doing, but having a sense of purpose. When I think about that, that's my why. Why am I doing that? And a lot of employees know what they do, but they don't know why they're doing it. And so, like having that combination, I think that's great to be able to talk about the potential and then the purpose. When it comes to the development of that, right? We talked about the AI, how AI is reshaping the traditional career path, but what are some of the skills that we as professionals, we're talking to thousands of HR professionals and some business leaders who are joining us right now. What are some of those skills that we should be focusing on developing to really remain relevant, to remain impactful in the future of work?
so I would think that I would use 5 particular pieces: specialization, perspective, intelligence, the narrative part of it, and entity. Who you are, your identity actually determines everything that you build around. So think of entity being at the center. And I just realized when you think about it, this SPINE creates something called the spine flywheel: specialization, perspective, intelligence, narrative, and entity. So what happens is if you really start looking at what AI does today and what is it that you are left with, you should be able to sample everything in a broad way, like a generalist does. You do a little bit of a lot of those, but to be able to address and create stuff based on a context. For example, what works for, I worked across many large organizations also and smaller places. What works in any one organization, a large to large organization, doesn't work. Yet most organizations benchmark. If that company is doing it, we should do it. This is best practices. It's such a terrible waste of time. So I believe that you should really start to have your own point of view developed based on things where you've really worked at it and you've been like an apprentice who's created that. So that's the first part. AI can do anything where there is a large data set, which means the human judgment, all of that is really something that AI will never be good at. So what one way to understand that is There's a language in Japan. It's called Ainu, Ainu. That's the name of the language. That's one language in which ChatGPT or any of the other LLMs is not good at. Why? Because small language will always tell you not enough people speak it, so I'm not very good at it. You can try it out yourself. So things which are human, where there isn't a large data set, think of what it's going to automate. Coding. Why? Because there are thousands and thousands of coders. It's very easy for AI to get trained on these thousands and thousands and thousands of coding lines, and therefore it can do now coding better than a human being. But the ability to deal with human beings, how to work with a difficult person, how to motivate somebody. The role of a teacher is no longer, for example, about content. It's about how do you motivate somebody. Three, to think about your career not like a ladder, but a lattice which goes into different dimensions. It could be that you now are working in something else, completely different area. Could be a new geography, could be a new sector, could be a new field, could be a new specialization. All of that. I mean, I think that's, and then of course there are so many other factors that are going to shape the way that you think about your work. So the perspective that you develop is going to be shaped by political forces. So there is a war somewhere, there's not a war somewhere, there's a change of government. It'll create opportunities. The economic things. If the economy becomes unaffordable for a lot of people, low cost things will have lots of opportunities. So the idea is currently be alert to say, what is it that I can do in this configuration rather than to sort of go with a predetermined thing. That's the frozen model of your identity. So just being fluid about it is really the way that you can future-proof your career.
Yeah, I love that thought. For many of us, it really starts here, right? The battle of everything. Whenever there's something new, I remember when your cell phones went house to the car, from the car to like our hands, right? And the ages of pagers and beepers, and like technology where it is now is totally different, right? We used to carry a phone in one hand and still have cameras in our others. I go to my grandparents' or aunt's house and I see photo books and photo albums, things that we don't see in a normal home with somebody 25 maybe or younger. My kid looked at a DVD the other day and a VHS tape and was like, what is this? And where does it go? Because we don't have it in our house anymore to be able to use outside of it being in a closet. We are constantly as humans changing our mind, right? Our mindset shifts so much. And especially in the workplace, we have to be able to do this. I always say great leaders. What separates great leaders from good leaders are that the willingness, but also being able to adapt. What mindset shifts? When I think about this, and this is a conversation that I had at a conference, a table, is like the mindset shifts. What mindset shifts can you give us that would help people build a resilient, fulfilling career, especially in the times where there's rapid change and adaptation, and we're talking about AI and what it can and cannot do, what it could do and help us and support us. But at the end of the day, we both know humanity is the key to technology, as it put, and we need that. What's the mindset shifts that we can have to become resilient and fulfilling careers as the time is changing?
Sure. So George, I think I'm going to sort of answer this in two parts. One is a mindset shift, and the second is, the first mindset shift is that your career is shaped by millions of other factors beyond just simply skill and your personality. So we've always been told, kind of work hard, get the skills, and then everything is good. Actually, there are lots and lots of factors. You're working in a particular industry, suddenly the founder decides to part ways with their co-founders, and suddenly the thing collapses. So there are many factors. One of the things to look at is, we used to think about careers as a single straight line. So career 1.0, I wrote a book called Career 3.0, and 1.0 is one ecosystem. I work in Bethlehem Steel, I kind of retire from Bethlehem Steel. So that's the way that we have looked at our lives and careers. You go to a second phase, which is two particular skills and two ecosystems. Think about it, during COVID, a lot of people started to develop their own hobbies and sort of look at that as something that they could monetize. Yeah. Why monetization is important? Because it simply means you're good enough for somebody to pay you to do this. That's the monetization reason. But let's say you do whatever work you do as HR person, you're a generalist, you're a specialist, you're doing all of that. But maybe you're very good at editing videos. Maybe you're very good at baking. Maybe you're good at doing painting. If think about creative ways in which you can monetize the second aspect of it. The reason for that is you need to have one area where it can become future proof. So if one sort of fails, then you still have something else that holds your identity together, not just the pay stream. The third element is to have career 3.0, which is you build 6 skills, and which is 3 different ecosystems. The 6 skills are: one, how do you learn what you've not been formally taught? This is a great example of just what I thought is just so powerful, that you're doing the summer school. This is a terrific way in which you build. So don't just look at it from a content absorption point of view, but build connections. Connect with me, connect with George, connect with all the people that you're meeting here, your peers, your friends. Tell them about the process of it. Always helps your learning, because learning is a social process. So how do you learn that? Two, when you learn something, teach somebody. The moment you sort of do that, you will find that it makes you a better expert, because more and more people discover that, oh, wow, I mean, you can explain things in such a different way. For all you know, that just creates another set of opportunities. For example, on Instagram, look up somebody called Miss Excel, EXEL, the Microsoft Excel. She dances and teaches Excel. She loves dancing. She's very good at doing Excel. She teaches that in a truly creative way. She makes 6 figures in one day. So that's amazing that Miss Excel. I've written about her in my book. Amazing person. So teaching George what you are doing could be the next big thing. So I'm going to sort of sign up to be with you on an ongoing basis. So that's definitely skill two. The third is, how do you become a great storyteller? Because the ability to be great. So these 6 skills are all, to be great at teaching, you also need to be a storyteller, because people are not just interested in the content part of it, but somebody who can make that content come alive, make it context specific. That's what makes you a great storyteller. The fourth is different ecosystems. How do you sort of, you are teaching this in a school? Can you teach it in a college? Can you teach it in the community? Can you teach it in this shop where you are doing? Try many different things. The last part of it is that how do you sort of really start to navigate these different ecosystems and think that your skills are to be crafted like a list portfolio. Some skills are going to be really good. You are going to be very proficient at it. Some skills you are learning, you are a novice. Some skills you are at the peak. The moment you start to get good, build your next skill and start developing the next one. At any given point of time, you are constantly learning a couple of different things which are new. So the ability to learn passion, learn, teach somebody, become a great storyteller, and the last I would say is build a personal brand is the other last piece. That's your sixth skill. You brand by doing all the above, becoming part of different ecosystems and the 6 skills. That's how you become a great personal brand as well. So that's
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was incredible. I'm going to end it right on that, the 6 ways. Listen, we're going to throw in his LinkedIn link in the chat. If you love this, let's see the hearts, the likes go up. Connect with him on LinkedIn. His link is in the chat right now for you. Until next time, I'm ready to get back to Ben Eubanks for more HR Summer School.
Goodness gracious. So that was so much fun to hear that session. And the audience latched onto like career lattice, some of the like believe in yourself, the potential of people, and seeing that. Probably no surprise to anyone because we all know people. It's what our jobs are. But when we do research in this, we ask like candidates who are looking for jobs, for example. So would you rather a company know all the things you can do right now and judge you based on that, or know all the things you are capable of, like all your potential, and judge you based on that? And what we see from candidates that are more likely to prefer that second one. They said, don't just see me for what I am or what I could be. And that seems to be a tie back to the conversation with Christine earlier, right? We're seeing that sort of thing in these conversations. I even hear from Ken about how do we think through problems? The old problem was how to create something fast. That's not a problem anymore. Okay, now the new problem is something else, and we've got to be able to pull through that. So great call outs there. Some good ideas. One of the other comments, Brandy flagged the compete with AI where there's no data set. Find a way to compete and bring your unique human ingenuity to the table, because AI struggles to do things that are new and novel and different. All of us here have had to do that probably this week. Have had to run across something we didn't know how to do and figure it out. So George, those are some of my quick takeaways from that session.
Yeah, I truly love his heart. And of course, for me, my best takeaway has to be an acronym, right? I got to shout out the acronym. He talked about the SPINE, specialization, perspective, intelligence, narrative, and entity. Those things are so important. I think it's something that we should align within. When I think about the leadership development and the work we do, and being able to coach individuals, I think about the SPINE analogy and this acronym here of like understanding specialization, perspective, right? What's your perspective, but also understanding perspective and perception are two different views. And so that alignment there, kudos to our good friend Abhijit and that incredible session. Love chatting with him.
Yeah, that was fun. Okay, so we have one more session, then we're going to take a pause and do some giveaways as we're moving through. About an hour left in today's event. So our next session with Kim Stevens at Employ. Again, Kim and I got into some of the things we can do to show respect to candidates at scale. I know when I was a recruiter day to day, one of the hardest things to do was to make sure that we're doing feedback for people and communicating with them. And back then, we were doing it all manually. Now we have tools that help us to do that more easily. So she talked about some of the really simple things we can do with the tools at our disposal to try to give people closure, to connect with them, to close the loop, all that good stuff. So let's jump in with Kim and hear what she has. I see her in the chat. She's here. Great. And so we'll go ahead and y'all say hello to Kim Stevens there in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started with the session. Hey everybody, I am here with Kim Stevens from the team at Employ, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that are happening and hiring right now. Kim's got some cool data that she'll be sharing with us, and we're going to talk about some of the ways that we can create stronger connections with candidates, how we can share what's going on, be transparent, all those things. I'm excited about the conversation and diving into it. But first, Kim, welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. I'm super excited to be here and excited for this topic and being part of this event. This is amazing.
We're going to have some fun. I can guarantee it. So before we get into some of the stuff I was teasing there for the audience, would you take a minute and tell us more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yes, of course. My name is Kim. I have been in talent acquisition for about 11 years now. I am currently at Employ, and I lead our talent and acquisition team. And so Employ in general, our products and solutions are, we're in the HR tech space, and we have our main products are ATSs. So a unique space to be in, especially as a TA leader.
So one of the things I want to talk to you about today is every single year, the team does this Job Seeker Nation report. They talk to job seekers. They do a Recruiter Nation report later in the year, but this looks at the job market, who's out there, talks to a bunch of candidates, and tries to figure out some of the themes and challenges that are popping up. And as I was looking at that, one of the things that stood out to me is there's this ghosting problem, but not ghosting like we've talked about for a long time, right? This is on the other side where candidates are saying, we're being ghosted by employers. Would you talk about that for a little bit and some of the things that y'all found?
Yeah, I know. I think that was surprising for me as well. I think it said something about 32% of candidates are ghosted by hiring managers in the process. And so I think what that signals to me is, there's so many candidates right now, especially for the tech market. And I think that probably what is happening, or what I'm assuming is happening, is that the systems that the companies may be using are not really working for them. The automation isn't working for them because no one is intentionally trying to ghost candidates. It's something in their process. It's something in that automation. And I think because of the volume in some cases, if you don't have your processes down, your automations down, your integrations functioning, that can lead a lot to what's happening in the market, where you've as a candidate and as an applicant, you feel like your application goes into this void, or you get ghosted in the actual interview process. So there is something on the back end in your process that is broken. That is what it's signaling to me for sure.
Well, I go back to we do our own research, and one of the things that stood out to us, we asked employers this just this spring. So at the same time you are doing this data set that you were collecting, we saw that employers, leaders like you, said we are being asked to do more with less. We're being stretched out. And so we asked them, okay, well, in that case, what's the first thing to go? What's the first thing that you cut back on to try to keep your momentum going? Like the first thing was communicating with candidates. Like, oh no, we're creating this negative cycle and making it worse potentially because candidates are telling us, hey, it's not great. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of our job is the candidate communication piece. It's part of the job. It's part of that administrative part of the recruitment function, but it is such an important part. And I'm going to go back to technologies and templates and automation and process. I think you can still have that human element and it still be automated as a template. It depends on your systems. It depends on your ATSs, but there should be triggers along the way that you can preset in your application process to help you send updates to candidates in regards to their application, where they're at in process. And if you don't have those triggers, you should probably be thinking more about like how you can automate with your email templating. And you can get really creative with templates and make them feel more human and not feel like it's just an automated message that they're receiving. I know that we've gotten some good feedback, even from candidates that were actually not a fit, but they gave us feedback because in one case we have a trigger in our system that it's compensation related. And so basically what it is if they're outside of the range, they will get an automation of a triggered disposition email. But it says in the template, it initiates the candidate to basically understand, hey, we see that you're out of range. If this is a mistake, because a lot of the time candidates just put in what they think, right? And they don't want to be rejected for that. But I think we're trying to think through all of the situations and putting those in templates and putting those in triggers. And so for this particular example, we would put in, if this is a mistake, if you are open to our range that's listed on the job, and we'll pull that as a placeholder in the template as well, just so they can see it. I think that can make it more human. And we've had a lot of people either respond and say, actually, it is out of range. I appreciate the extra detail though of why I was rejected, or actually, no, I didn't know what the range was in the market. I just assumed it would be this, but I'm open to this. And so I think it's making sure that people understand to a certain degree, especially at the beginning of the funnel too, and not just throughout the funnel and throughout the process of recruitment, but at the beginning stages, why they are getting dispositioned.
I don't know if you saw this, there was a story in the news in the last week or two about a person, I guess, like, listen, I've done this job. This is on my job description. This is my current job title. I applied for a job and 5 minutes later was automatically rejected. Yeah. Even though like I do this job, and it got picked up by the news and they were sharing this and saying, look at all this trouble that's being caused. And when I saw that, I thought, okay, that is kind of weird. But your point here makes you think like he could have asked for a lot of different things or said different things that made him not a fit for that. Yeah. And it's not always an AI not picking you. We have some very specific rules and filters, like a lot of times for roles that we had to hire in the past that had like a security clearance. It was, you must be a U.S. citizen in order to be eligible for this job. That was a requirement for that cleared process. And so we had people that were kicked out, but it wasn't, again, AI. It wasn't malicious. It was just, this is required by the government who is going to be ultimately paying for this job. And so I think back to those sorts of things. So as you were sharing that, I was like, now I feel differently about that story in the news the other day.
And I think there's something bigger to it too, is being careful with your triggers, right? If you have triggers set for specific disposition or rejection emails, and but you're sending a generic email in response to why candidates are being rejected, if they don't understand what part of it, like, so let's just say, let's go back to the sponsorship piece.
Mm-hmm.
If they accidentally say, we actually have had this a lot, and we've restructured the way that we pose that question. But we had some people that were like, hey, I don't require sponsorship, but I got a rejection email that said that, like, that said that we unfortunately we can't sponsor. And if they didn't know that was the reason, then they would have just been like, well, I guess I just wasn't a fit, even if they were an actual job fit. So we've had people come back and say, actually, no, I'm so sorry. I was speeding through the application process. I hit yes instead of no. And so I think it's really important to don't be scared to customize rejection templates to call out some of the reasonings why. You don't have to get so specific in like their actual job specific like experience, but you can get kind of specific with certain triggers, especially if it's comp or things that are tangible where they can understand like exactly why.
Yeah, like a category,
right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's really important.
I think that's a great call out there, because I always think back to my days where I was doing this manually. Okay. I had a template, but I had to copy paste that sucker. It took forever to do these sorts of things way back when. And so the easiest thing to do was to have something very generic. And a lot of companies are still in that mode of have a generic, hey, thank you for your application. We pick someone else, but that's all it says, or we're not considering you any further. It's all it says. And if you give a little bit of extra detail there around that, people generally are happier with that. The data tell us people want to see those things. Companies are worried about it because they don't want to get into trouble. But the things you're talking about here are not things that are going to get anyone into trouble. And it's going to lead to better clarity for that candidate on the other side of the aisle. So it'll be good. Sorry.
I'm so excited about this topic because I think it's so important. I think it's so important. And I think I always say, be more specific on the front end. I think when it comes to specific things like we said, like comp or even years of experience, you could have a rejection where it says, if the question is, we need someone between 1 to 4 years of experience, do you have that, yes or no? And they hit no, but on accident, but then we have a disposition email that tells them, then I think that they could come back and say, actually, no, I actually have 2 years of doing this, and they can explain more and they know exactly why they were rejected. I think it gets trickier when you get through the process.
Yes.
Where companies get scared. And I think it is, there's compliance, there's risk there. When candidates get further in the process, to me, I never put feedback. I'm old school, and maybe I'm too old school, but I think that candidates deserve feedback on an actual call. And I think that puts you less at risk at times, and you can still be high level with the feedback, but I never put granular feedback on interview feedback or anything like that in the actual, like an email. But I think that you can on the front end because there's less risk.
What's interesting that is I can think of 2 reasons why your approach is better. Number one, if I take the time, hey, Kim, got a minute, I just want to catch you up on what's happening with the job. We picked someone else. Here's the reason why. Thank you again so much. We're going to hold on to your stuff because you were one of our top candidates. Like, someone on the receiving end of that feels heard. They feel respected, right? Even if it's a no, it's like, darn. But that level of respect to come back to them like that is different than what they're getting from everybody else in the employer space, right? And the other part there is when you get something in writing, all of us have a tendency to start picking it apart and saying, second guessing it. And well, maybe they didn't hear me, or I should have shared this example. Or let me tell you something else. Like, the door's not open. I'm not telling you the door's open to continue the conversation. And so being able to do that closure verbally and face-to-face as much as you can, or at least over the phone, it feels to me like it's more respectful and connects them, especially if they spent the time doing an interview, doing a work sample, something else, not just a blind apply on the website. But those other steps, that's when I feel like we owe them something back.
Yeah, I do too. And sometimes too, I think it's okay. I always like to give the option. I will send an email and say, because we all know we have a lot on our plate, and sometimes giving someone a call impromptu is difficult. And it's also, you want to be respectful of their time too. And in the scheduling piece of everything, there's logistics that go into recruitment and communication. So I always like to give, because some candidates really, they already know that they're either they didn't think they were a fit, they didn't want to be a fit for the job, and they don't need that feedback. So I always put in an email, hey, if you want to jump on a call, here's my Calendly link. Let's talk through the feedback. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, but I think they always are appreciative of the fact that's an option for them. Mm-hmm. And they're not just getting a blanketed, you're not a fit.
I'm so intrigued by this because I'm thinking about the times where I did that sort of thing for a candidate and something similar opened up 2 months later, or that person came on and didn't work out for whatever reason. And I get to come back to them and they're not like, who are you? Like, hey, how's it going? Good to catch back up. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, tell me more. So I left them in a good enough place I could come back and pick up again if I needed to on a thread, not to just string them along, right? Yeah. But because it's what a good human would do. And so to me, that sort of thing happening more times than I can count. And if I had just shut them down, done the text breakup sort of thing, whatever you want to call it, and not had the decency to connect back with them when we had some conversations, then we would not have had the chance to pick that back up again, start at the 70% mark instead of starting over at 0 with somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm having so much fun around this too. I did not expect to talk about all the rejection stuff today. There's like a master class on how to reject someone in a respectful way, right?
Yeah.
And make them feel, you know what? Again, darn, I missed it, but I appreciate this.
Yeah. And I think Ben too, like, well, I mean, I know. So I think I got humbled really quick when I was laid off, and I was in the job market for like over a year, almost a year and a half. And it really made me self-reflect, and it made me think about, I think it actually happened for me as a TA professional for a reason. It really made me self-reflect and think, what could I do better in my next role? When I do get another role, hopefully.
Yes.
But it did make me think like, God, we got to get better. Like we have to get better. And by getting better, we have to have the acknowledgement of like, these are not just resumes. These are people. Some are not people, especially nowadays. So it's very fraudulent there.
Don't get us all on the creepy track, Kim. Okay.
Yeah, but I do think it's slowing down your recruitment team too, to let them know and to reinforce the fact that we are dealing with people. It's not just, yes, you want to fill the position that's best for that person and best for the company. And that's where it is. And these are people. These are not just resumes. I'm so passionate about that. And I think it's to do with, there's so many people out there in that same circumstance and the worse circumstance than what I was in. And so I think we have to really remember what we're in the business of, and that's people.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask you one more question, if you're good with that.
Yeah.
So you've given us a lot of good practical inputs, a lot of good ideas around how to treat people at the beginning of the process, how to gently let them off, because again, let's face it, if 100 people apply, 99 don't get it, one gets it. So we need to be thinking about how to treat the other 99 in a respectful way. We got a lot of good things there. Anything else that you've learned that you're like, hey, this is one of my like key life lessons around recruitment that I think all of us could do better, or this was the thing that sets apart the best ones from the people who could stand to be better at this? Anything else that you want to share?
I don't know if it's specific to the individual, the recruitment team, or anything in regards to that. I think what I have grown to really understand throughout my career is companies that understand the value of talent acquisition and HR. The companies that get that and understand that there needs to be some investment there, it goes such a long way in regards to the talent that you bring into your organization, your retention. There's so many elements, and it starts there. And companies that understand that and get it and understand that process can kill your talent flow, and not understanding the reasonings behind why it's important to have a good interview plan, have a good process, and it work for the candidate, not just the company or the team. That's when I think it's such a critical part of our job. So going back to TA, it's such a critical part of us being able to show that value and to enable leaders to understand that value. And it starts with us too. And I think I would say that it's not, this is maybe more philosophical, but we are in the business of humans. And like, if we could just think about that, like more deeply and thoughtful, and be thoughtful and strategic and invest in that, you are going to get your return on investment with your business and generating revenue. But you have to get that right first. And if you can't get that right, it's going to be a continuous situation that you're in. Unfortunately, that's not a good one. But
so many things that occur to me as you're saying that. Like, my favorite saying around recruiting is the easiest job to fill is the one where you didn't lose a person in the first place. Like, do well by them when they're an employee here and bring them on and all those sorts of things. So our brain's going in all kinds of good directions. So thank you again for joining us. So what we're going to do here on the screen for the audience out there, if you want to see that report that Kim was talking about earlier, the data point on ghosting and a bunch of other data on how job seekers feel right now, you can scan that QR code and go and download that report from the team and employee. We're going to make sure and put Kim, your LinkedIn handle in here so they can reach out and connect with you as a fellow HR recruiting leader that they can connect with and maybe talk shop, maybe talk about that interesting candidate experience they had one time themselves. And they're like, oh yeah, I've been there just like Kim was. And I appreciate that. It gives you an empathy and appreciation for everybody that's going through it today. So thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more summer school coming right up. All right, everybody. Well, George is getting that QR code ready to go for a second. Then you can come and join me, George. Really quickly, we're about to do some giveaways for people here in the audience. That was such a fun session with Kim. Really quick, talk about that. I have so much fun watching this set of different people that don't know each other, that aren't connected. And Kim, thanks for joining us in the chat. It was good to see you, my friend. But she talked to the end about, listen, we're in the people business. Again, that wasn't prompted. I didn't ask her to do that. And that connects to all these other things that we've been covering over the last 2 days. Hint, we're going to cover some of that tomorrow too. But it's so much fun for me to see those connections where we all know fundamentally, generally, this is what good looks like, right? Treat people well, have some respect, dignity. Yeah, those things matter. And then, hey, this doesn't look very great. Being unresponsive, not connecting, not showing that you care about the person behind the job title. Like, both of those two sides of it are very real. So that was awesome. Loved it, Kim. And thanks again to the employee team for connecting us. I have a new friend in the recruiting world, which is always great. So we're going to give some books away. We have all right, great. George got our employee QR code up there. Perfect. And then I want to clue you in on this. So yesterday, the audience we had live saw a stack of books sitting there. I was like, get what you want. I got so many of these to give away. So George is taking that seriously, trying to give us a long list of people to be giving things to. So the first one I have is Nobody Cares About Your Career. This book by Erica has some of those like fundamental truths of how we get work done, how we feel about the things we're accomplishing. And like, one of the ways to talk about it is like, embrace the chaos. And I felt like it was very fitting for our audience. We have a bunch of warriors out there doing good work, and for people that want to excel and reach their potential, as we heard from Abhijit earlier, then this is a book to help you get there. So we're giving some of these books away. We recently gave some of these books away, A Greater Goal, at our event around compensation. I have a couple of those left. And this is the true story of the U.S. women's soccer team as they were fighting for and continue to fight for pay equity. They said, you know what, the men's team over there is doing okay as a team, not great, but they're getting paid a lot more than us. And we are winning these world championships, these big tournaments, and we're getting paid less than them. So they advocated for and fought for and have been striving for equal pay. And so as a dad with 4 daughters, that means a lot to me for the workplace they're going to be entering. And so we have some copies of A Greater Goal we'll be giving away, and then a couple more we'll talk about but either into the day or tomorrow. But those are some of the things we have to give away to the audience. George, you're going to come back and join me for us to do these giveaways real quick before we transition to our last sessions there. All right.
I'm here.
All right. George did put the QR code there. If some of the data that Kim and I talked about is there in that report from Employ, they do their Job Seeker Nation. Listen, I read this when I was a recruiter 10, 15 years ago. I read that every time it came out, and I still follow it because they always ask interesting questions. And I'm a research nerd, as you all know. So you can check that out right there. George, I don't have anything to do a drum roll with, but would you like to bring this up and share? Oh my goodness. All right.
Does that work? Does that work?
That works, I think. Yes. So goodness. All right. So here's what's going to happen. We changed this yesterday. So normally it's, hey, email Jill. She'll get you set up. Jill is behind the scenes. She's the one who answers all of your questions. She is so gracious with all of that. We're grateful for her. She's also the ones that helps coordinate all of the winners and making sure we get your address and everything else. And she is trying to make that process more streamlined because we're giving a bunch of stuff away. And so I want to make it easy on her to do that. So she will reach out to every one of these people here on screen. If you've registered, then we have your name, we have your email, we'll reach out to you. If you're like, uh-oh, my name's there and I didn't register, go do it real quick. The link's at the bottom of the screen. You can sign up and make sure that you are able to get that, and she'll be reaching out to you to confirm. So thank you all for chiming in, for being supportive, for participating, and continue to, because we'll give away some more things at the end of the day and tomorrow, lots more as well. All right, George, anything you want to call out while I'm transitioning to our next set of our next speaker?
No, I mean, everything's tied together. I love some of the comments, and I want to read a few of those real quickly as you're getting that one ready. And one of those that really kind of impacted was always have your expectations of you be higher than those that others try to place on you. And so Dre Brown said that. It reminded me of something that I always used to have to tell myself and remind myself, is that you don't want to be a cheap copy of a great original. So be the best you, right? Don't be a cheap copy of a great original. In the world where we copy, especially in technology, where it's really copy pasting, then how can we trigger and change a few things and make it our own? I just, as we're hearing all these things, humanity, empathy, and even in the TA field, with this last conversation, I think it's so important to be authentically you in those conversations. Show up as if you were on the other side of that table, right? And be yourself. And I think that comment was one of the ones that was really incredible for me, that sticks out as well, when it comes to AI influence in the workplace.
Goodness gracious. Okay. Speaking of influence and humanity and all those things, George, your next session is your interview with Yannick from Bucket List. We're going to talk about recognition and how we can use that to probably drive behavior, if I had to guess, connect to culture, those sorts of things. So we're going to transition to this one. And then we have one more session after that before I'm trying to find my agenda really quickly. Goodness, can't find it. One more session with Emma before we wrap up for the day. And we're a little behind, George. Let's get to it. Here we go.
George, once again, and I'm excited. Want to introduce real quickly, just introduce yourself and tell us one thing that maybe not a lot of people know that you're really passionate about.
Well, thanks, George, for having me. So my name is Yannick Provencher. Kind of hard name to say. I'm from Quebec City. My first language is French, so I always translate my name. In the real pronunciation is Provencher, but you can say Provencher, no problem, if you ever have to say my name. But yeah, different things about me, what I'm passionate about. I'm kind of really specific in that I'm really passionate when it comes to my personal life to skiing in the winter and go-kart racing in the summer. I always stays the answer because it's really something I do a lot and I do enjoy very much. In terms of more professionally, I'm an IO psychology advisor at Bucket List. And a lot of the things that I do is the thought leadership about recognition and just finding out the evidence of why recognition works and why, in other words, it's so amazing. So a lot of measurement, and another of my passion is kind of measuring things that are hard to directly observe or directly see. And these are a lot of things that involve our organizational health and safety. So like feeling valued, burnout, stress, engagement, all these things that you cannot measure with a ruler or a specific metric. You kind of have need surveys, focus group, interviews. So I'm kind of really passionate about that as well. And yeah, I'm also have a master's in industrial and organizational psychology. So all my research is focused on organizational health and safety. And yeah, I'm also a PhD candidate. So I'm really happy to be here and having that conversation with you, George.
Awesome. That's incredible. Just a few weeks ago, you talked about go-karts, and I love racing. We have the Indy 500, which is kind of the spectacle of all sports racing. It was incredible. So as we talk about today, we've been diving into the future of work is human. I want to ask you, just kind of finish that sentence for me, if you would. The future of work is human when?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it's human when we work together. And that's especially important in the age of AI, because we kind of tend to forget the human part. But if you look back, I think as a species, we always did a lot of good work and evolved really well by cooperating, like working together through cooperation instead of working against each other. I think that's when the human progress we progress and are the most successful as humans. So I think keeping that in mind as AI is rising up, that instead of seeing AI as replacing us, more keeping the human centered in there and making sure that relationships we build, that recognition that we give, stay human in a way that we can still be successful to the most of our potential. So that's how I would say it, working together, especially in the rise of AI.
Yeah. One of the things when it comes to recognition, Yannick, is that a lot of companies, at times organizations, you'll see this huge gap. We understand what it means to appreciate someone and how different that is from recognition, right? And recognizing someone for the work that they're doing. And there's this huge gap with a lot of organizations when it comes to recognition. As much as they love it, very few of them really connect it directly to their business performance. What are some things that really separates and impactful recognition strategies from a surface level of I like to say strategy versus program, but a lot of people say programs in there. But what's the separation when it comes to those things?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good question here. And I do work with a lot of different customers at Bucket List, and some of them do that really well. Others struggle more, like you said, keeping more the surface levels. And the things that you really see from a very, very good organization when it comes to connecting to business performance and going beyond the surface levels is they really built an infrastructure around recognition and a system around it. And by that is they have a process to do it. And what you typically see in those organizations is they really have three different things that they do that other organizations don't do as much. And the first thing is they ensure that the recognition that's been given in their company and so on comes from the leadership, top down, comes from their vision and values. So the organizational values that are set by the organization, the culture they want to build, because recognition is really powerful. So if you recognize someone, it will reinforce and encourage the behavior. So you want to make sure that the behavior you encourage is also something that you want in your organization and that's really valued. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to make sure that that's specific and the employees are clear about that. And then have a process that we really value when you recognize people around different things. An example could be kindness, right? Recognize around kindness, show different things around that. That's something that could be it. Another one, I would say, they ensure that the recognition that's happening throughout the organization is visible, that everyone can see it in a way. And if you use a platform or you have a good recognition program, that's something that you can do really well. But there's still some problems that arise as well for some specific organization. And the customers that we have that is doing an amazing job of that is some of the jobs, like in construction or frontline or in healthcare settings, the employees don't necessarily have the time to log in and see all the recognition that are on the platform or in their specific recognition program. So what they did is they use our technology, they use the platform, the feed, and all the recognition that was given they printed them out. And what they did is they put that in the break rooms and things like that in their organization. So the people on their breaks and stuff could see all the cool recognition that was happening in their organization, but also not necessarily at their location, but in other departments, in other location, and just celebrating the wins across the company. I think it was a very good way they did that to make it more visible to their employees. And finally, and that one is really close to my heart, is the measurement of it all. They ensure that they track the effectiveness of their program, the ROI of the recognition that happens. So does the recognition that we give, does the frequency, does the quality of the recognition that's being given across our organization influence the metric that matters to us? And oftentimes those are pretty similar across organization, but it can be engagement, turnover intention, reducing those turnover, reducing stress, increasing satisfaction, and so on, because these are directly tied to performance. And if you have their performance metric, they also tie that to performance metrics.
Yeah, that's important, really. When you talk about, when I think about recognition and I look at organizations that really have embrace what it means to have a meaningful employee recognition, I'm thinking about a time in my career when I had retail stores and employees on my team that I thought I was given the correct recognition. And some of the mistakes that I made earlier on and the ignorance of it was not tying those to the business strategies, understanding the language of employees. And what I mean by that is understanding what how George receives recognition. Is he a verbal? Is he someone who loves the audience? Does he want to have it in front of it? Is it just email? Is it something that we put on our board, as you're mentioning? How does meaningful employee recognition influence other business impacts? You talk about one of the key things that everybody runs to when it comes to ROI. What's the ROI? What's your KPI on those things? Retention is always there. But when people are engaged, when people are appreciated, they're more likely to stay with the organization. So what are some of the other meaningful recognition influences besides recognition and engagement and even productivity? And I think of this as overall culture in today's workplace.
Yeah, so recognition will shape your culture. And one of the cool things that I love about my job as well is I get to track those. I get to see how effective recognition is across the board, especially that recognition that is done really well. And the metrics are consistent across the board. We see that across all industries that we measure. You can see that also in external research, but even the research we do with our own customers, we see it. So in terms of impact and ROI, we see that if you recognize employees more often and you also recognize them with higher quality of recognition, and I can dive more into it later as well, they're 4 times more likely to be engaged and 6 times less likely to think about leaving. And also there's a huge impact on reducing burnout and reducing stress. These are things that we consistently see. But yeah, it's really, really, really impactful. And the reason why it works is not necessarily because it's a direct impact. So recognition is the thing that comes first. We always call it like a leading indicator. So you were talking about how you give recognition and all these things and going to other metrics other than performance and let's say satisfaction or engagement, but it doesn't directly typically impact these metrics. First, it impacts things like belonging, impacts things like feeling valued, feeling part of the group. And that's the interesting component. That's the thing that recognition impacts is first. And that is why it works so well. Because when you feel valued, when you feel good about yourself, when you feel competent in the work that you do, when you feel you're appreciated at the work, by your peers and your coworkers and your leaders, then that motivates you to work harder, to be more engaged. And that's what we see. You become more engaged, you become more satisfied, and that impacts your performance in the long run.
Yeah, I love that you say that. Ben made a statement a while back, and something that I've been repeating over and over and over again is that humanity is now the true premium. And the value that people see when I hear from employees, what I'm hearing is they want to be seen, they want to be valued, they want to feel safe, right? We talk about the belonging aspect, but also the foundation of all those things is being able to know that I can trust my leaders and this organization where there's psychological safety at that as well. And a lot of times where most people go wrong is recognition is treated as a program and culture is treated as a slogan. and performance is treated as a metrics. And it's really, how do we tie all these things together where culture, performance, and recognition is a true framework within the organization? As I mentioned that, I'm thinking about something that I really wanted to ask you, so I'm gonna ask it now because I think it's a great time. I don't want to use the word mistake as if that's like everyone's making mistakes, because sometimes it's just we don't know, or we haven't even thought outside of the box that we've been given. But what are some of those concerns, mistakes, in the box things that leaders make when trying to recognize employees? And how can, and I'll add a second question on, how can we as people create recognition that feels authentic and motivating without an organization say we're implementing bucket lists? How can you go beyond, hey, we have this great recognition software, but it's really who we are, it's what we do? How can it be more authentic?
Yeah, I'll start with the mistake aspect, and that's a really good question. I get asked that question like a lot, and I feel like I come up with a different answer all the times. But I think what I want to focus on really in terms of mistake, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's kind of a trap that we often get ourselves into as leaders and as we build a recognition program, is one of the first and most important things that we do to measure the success of a program is we want to ensure that recognition, that people across the organization recognize each other, and there's a frequency that happens. Like recognition frequency is present in your organization. So the more you recognize others in your organization, the better your recognition program is. And that's true to some extent, because that will have a great impact on all the outcomes that we discuss, like performance, turnover, intention, engagement, and so on. But it's also a trap that if you focus only on this, you will miss on the biggest piece that affects, that makes recognition like a superpower, and that is recognition quality. That means it's recognition that is authentic, that feels fair, that is personalized, specific, and that is timely, that happens. And if you focus too much on the frequency, you tend to kind of ignore the quality, right? I like, just as an example, let's say I want to provide you recognition. And I'll be honest here, I'm enjoying the conversation with you right now. I think you're doing a really good job explaining the question to me. And I think you're making me comfortable in this fire chat, and I have a great time. So thank you for that, and I do appreciate it. I mean, that's giving recognition in a way, and I mean it when I say that. That's giving recognition that I'm kind of specific towards the behavior that I'm giving to you. But instead, if I just told you, hey, George, thanks for coming to the meeting today, I appreciate it. Does that feel like, did you feel anything from me saying that? Probably not as much than me saying that, like, you're making me comfortable being here. Because I actually meant it and focused on the exact behavior that you did, instead of just saying, oh, cool, you showed up, right? Which is kind of an expected behavior in the organization or whatsoever. So I think that's the most important thing. Focus on the quality as well. So make sure frequency is there, but also ensure that the recognition that's being given across your organization is of high quality. And that's when you see the biggest impact. If you compare customers with lower quality or higher quality, that's where we see the biggest difference.
Yeah. That's amazing. I want to tap and maybe end it on this conversation, because I want to go back to, as the future work is human, some of the human qualities. You mentioned the word belonging, and it kind of triggered just kind of a reminder. And again, for those who have heard this before, I'll repeat it. For those who are new, it's great for you to hear it. But we define psychological or belonging, the defining moment of psychological belonging, defining it as I feel accepted, respected, and appreciated at work by my direct leader. And when we ask that question, there's some research as well. I want to get kind of your comments on this and tying this together. When we asked that question, the employees who said, I feel accepted, respected, and appreciated was 3.4 more times to be happy with their current job. They were 7 times more likely to recommend their employer as a great place to work. And so there's this connection, the impact, if you will, on belonging, the impact on being human at work. And there's a lot of guardrails that a lot of leaders sometimes will put up, where this is business, this is nothing personal. How would you encourage our HR professionals and leaders who are watching right now, as a takeaway, the importance of humanity at work, where you're creating psychological safety, you're creating that psychological belonging where people feel accepted, respected, and appreciated? How is that so valuable, and how would you encourage them to treat that not just as a program, but actually aligning it with their core values at work?
Yeah, a very great question. I also have a good story based on that as well. So at the end of the day, we're all social beings, right? And the reason, like I said, I think before, why recognition works so well, is because we're human. It goes back to the social connection we make, the trust that it builds, being empathetic toward each other, being kind toward each other, and all these things. So like I said, it doesn't directly, let's say, influence performance, but it's that pathway. It makes you feel that you're part, you feel that you belong, and things like that. And a good example how you can implement that in your organization, and going back to the conversation that we have as well with tying back to your organizational values, make some of your values really human. So one of our customers, what they did as well, was really cool, is they really value kindness in their organization. So what they did is they published a post on the bucket list platform where they said that we really encourage you to recognize others in the company around things that they do that are kind to you, and put the word kindness in your recognition, and even upload a photo if you want of it so we can share that with all our group. And it really like increase the participation of the recognition program a lot. And they also, if you put kindness in there, they would take part in a giveaway of like in a draw or something. And that was really a nice example, kind of showcasing that it's easier than you think to make it human. It's easier than you think to take recognition and just make it something that we can all be social about and bond together with. And so it's the little things like that we tend to forget, but it's really impactful. And that's kind of why the impact is so big that you see in from the result also we just discussed.
Yeah, I love it. This has been a great conversation about employee recognition that really drives business results. Where can people learn more, follow you, connect with you, if you will?
Yeah, they can reach out on LinkedIn. I think I can upload or you will upload my LinkedIn in the chat. We might have a QR code as well. So you can definitely reach out to me. You can also reach out to my coworker, amazing coworker, Becca. I think she'll be on the call as well. She's on the call as well here. So yeah, you can either reach out to me or her. And yeah, feel free to DM me as well on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to respond.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Another great session.
Another great session. We're going to do this one quickly, George. Loved hearing that. The audience loved that. I can see so many good comments from people about the belonging piece, recognition, how it fits in, when we use it, how we use it. Lots of good inputs there. And I would love to go so much deeper into it. Thank you to the Bucket List team. We'll make sure. And George, please drop their link into the chat because the QR codes are giving us some trouble today. So drop their link into the chat if you don't mind. And we are going to go to our very last session for today before we wrap up, do a couple more giveaways, all that kind of fun stuff at the end. And we're going to go to Emma Belconis from WellFit. She is an HR leader in the trenches, like all of you. And she and I talk about the importance of connection. And again, all these different speakers, all these different leaders that don't know each other. And I can bet within 2 minutes, you're going to start hearing some ties and connections to some of the other things we've been covering in the session so far. So, George, you drop that in the chat, and we're going to jump in with Emma. We'll come back and do our recap shortly. Here we go. So glad you're here with us for another awesome session. I am really excited to be joined here by, I'm going to call you friend Emma, my friend Emma. We actually got to join each other on a podcast recently, and she was such a delight, so much fun to talk to that I said, please come to summer school, bring that same energy, that same pizzazz, all that good stuff. And so she agreed to do it. So Emma, welcome. I'm glad you're here, my friend.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're going to have some fun. So you are an HR leader. You're in the trenches every day. Take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do before we get into our conversation, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I serve as the director of people and organization. I'm at a dental fintech company where we're focused on making dental care more accessible and affordable through technology and financial solutions. So I wanted to take a minute and just share that I took a pretty non-traditional path to get into human resources. I like to joke that I didn't find HR, that HR found me. So it's been the constant theme there really is helping people grow and become the best versions of themselves. And that's how I ended up here at WellFit. I've been here for about 4 years. During that time, we've grown from 20 employees to more than 120 employees across multiple states. So I get to see everything from people culture, which includes recruiting, engagement, leadership support, and organizational strategy. So really excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to get in the conversation because when you and I talked before, we talked about some of that growth. We talked about the opportunity and the challenge that presents, but also some of the other things around how to keep connection alive when you're doing that, right? It's easy to focus just on the growth piece and all the other bits and forget about, we've got to make sure that we're staying connected or people will just fall away. So let's start there. Why don't we? So WellFit has grown a lot. As you mentioned, that's a pretty significant curve, pretty steep. And you still seem like a pleasant person. So kudos to you on that one. Talk about how you keep your culture, maintain your culture. How do you keep it alive when you're going like that? Because it feels like you could get pulled in a direction that may not be supportive of the values you have when you're pushed to grow that fast. If that makes sense.
Yes. So one of the things that I've learned being in a high growth environment is that growth exposes everything. So if you have unclear processes, if you have gaps in communication, if there's challenges with leadership, or even cultural inconsistencies can become amplified as organizations scale. So I think one of the biggest mistakes companies make is culture will naturally sustain itself through growth. It won't. Culture changes whether you intentionally manage it or not. So when organizations are small, cultures often survive on proximity. Everyone knows each other. Communication, it just happens organically. And alignment just feels easier. As companies grow, teams become more specialized, communication becomes more transactional, and silos can form very quickly. And it's really important that leaders stop and take the time to make sure we're kind of blending everything together. The other piece I want to hit on a little bit too is you start to see things like change fatigue. Priorities shift constantly. Processes are evolving. Employees, they can only absorb so much change at once. So for us, maintaining culture has really required a lot of intentionality. I said that a lot in my podcast as well, but intentionality around communication, ensuring our leadership is aligned, making moments for recognition and recognizing both the small and the big items, as well as creating opportunities for collaboration as we scale. So we're really working hard to create structure and operational maturity without losing that human side of the organization. But the other last thing I want to hit on this one is companies grow and scale. It's important to maintain the culture, but also to recognize that you may not preserve the same startup culture that exactly as it was. You may evolve into a new culture, but you want to ensure that that culture still reflects those values that the organization has.
So one of the things you touched on a second ago, I want to come back to, if you don't mind. You said something like, I can't remember the word for word, but basically like as you grow, some of those inconsistencies can get magnified as you start to grow. Do you have an example of one of those where you're like, hey, at this level, I didn't know if that was like this manager does it this way, that manager does it that way, if it was something else that you were talking about there, but I was kind of curious what that would look like.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things we've done recently, I'll use a recent example, we're trying to leverage automation and AI within our product development life cycle. And one of the things, and it's one of those things that we wanted to also move really quickly to hopefully have a larger impact, get more items across the finish line, and be able to deliver more to our customers, which is really exciting. And people bought in. So I think that was great, right? Let's dive headfirst. The team was really energized and really excited about it. But it was a completely new process and a process that we kind of said, here we go, we're going to learn as we go, which again, initially the team was really excited and all for it. But come month 2, and the change is still constantly happening, and the team's like, well, I need to pass it over from product to technology. What does that workflow look like? Well, today it's ABC, tomorrow it's XYZ. And that was really hard for all of the teams to continue to manage, as well as leadership, because leadership was in it with them. They were feeling the changes and they were trying to evolve as it goes. And so we stopped. I mean, thankfully, we had done a governance meeting for this type of change to really ensure we were staying in tuned with how is it truly going. And my team on the HR side, we actually really stepped in and brought it back to some of those basics, which really came back to communication. People just want to know what's coming. They can accept the change, but the more you can communicate what's coming, or if there's something they're waiting for, you can give them a date for when that's coming, they are much more willing to accept it. You're probably going to get less questions, the repetitive question of when is this integration coming? When is this happening? If we can just provide some clarity to them, they will be much more accepting and willing, and they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. With all the change happening around them, you just want to give them even a glimmer of that light will go a really, really long way for the employees.
There is hope around the corner. This is not the permanent state of things. Right? This is just a snapshot. This is not the whole movie. So hang tight with us. Okay. I like that. I like that. I want to ask you one of the things that, so you and I had fun talking about this because I worked in an organization where we had the same sort of thing, right? I joined a company and virtually overnight they'd gone from like 20 to 60 or 70 employees. So really fast growth. And we continued on past 100. And one of the things that was hard is as we got bigger, it was hard for me to feel connected to every single person, right? When you've got 40, I can know everybody's employees' names and I can know their kids' names and I can know when their dog's going to the vet. Like I can know all the things. As it got bigger, it felt harder to be connected to people. And I remember the first time that our CEO, who I reported to, said, you know what, I've never met anybody on this entire team over here before until today. And I realized like it was easy for him to feel disconnected too. And for all of us, the leadership team. So talk about why connection matters. That's my perspective as an HR leader.
Yep.
Talk about why that matters from the employee perspective, if you don't mind, like that connection piece and how that fits into that bigger picture of how they see themselves as part of the organization.
Yeah, I think connection should kind of be that foundational piece as we as HR leaders and HR employees look at that employee experience. Today's working environment has become incredibly fast. It's very digital as well, and that can lead to it feeling transactional. And when you lose that connection, you kind of lose that motivation. Our days are packed with back-to-back meetings, Slack messages coming at you constantly. You have deadlines, and then you're also constantly switching between project A and project B. We're communicating all day, constantly, nonstop, whether we like it or not, but we're not really connecting. And I think from that employee perspective, that's what people want. They want to be wanted. They want to feel seen. They want to feel valued and trusted. They want to be included. And they also want to be connected to that larger message. And why are we doing what we're doing? When that starts disappearing, that's when you can feel a collaboration weaken. You can see innovation slows down. Employees start feeling isolated, even though they're constantly interacting. And I think the message and theme of HR Summer School talks is really around technology and how it's changing the way we work, but connection directly impacts innovation. Innovation rarely is going to happen when someone is rushing to their next meeting. It happens when people feel psychologically safe enough to brainstorm, challenge ideas, think creatively, or even just pause long enough to ask, is there a better way to do this? And I think that's really important. We need to create a room for those types of moments. Otherwise, execution is just going to consume everything.
I've said this before probably on summer school, so I'll say it again really quickly. But my style of leadership is I am like to the task. Let's go do it. Let's go make it happen, and then we'll get more things to do. And it is not my natural style to slow down, because you said a minute ago, communicating isn't connecting. And I think that's so critical to call that out, because I will just talk at someone a lot, but I got to talk with someone. I've got to slow down and actually listen to them once in a while. And so I tell people, I made an audience laugh last week. I said, listen, I've got to slow down. And I'm like gritting my teeth. I'm like, hey, how was your weekend? Before we get into all the other stuff, because otherwise they're not going to, I care about people, but they're not going to feel it the same way if I just skip over all those things and go right to the work every time. So you calling that out, I'm like, you're stepping on my toes a little bit there, Emma, but it's because they need to be stepped on, because that's something I have to do if I want my people to know that I care about them. It doesn't happen by accident or it's just a natural byproduct of things. It only happens through intention. And I think that's what one of the things I'm getting from you is this has to be intentional, and it has to be part of this connection part has to actually happen. Would you give me an example of what this connection piece looks like, feels like? Because it's really easy for me to say, oh, just go connect, dust my hands off. But the people listening here are taking notes. They want to know, give me an example of how I can go do this, Emma. So what do you think?
Yep. So one of the things we do at WellFit, I think I shared at the beginning, we have people all over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And early on my journey in WellFit, we decided to do on-sites. So fly everybody in. And I know not everybody can do that, but you can do this virtually as well. But stopping and creating those moments for people to connect. We had an on-site, I think about 2 weeks ago now, and they're just so reinvigorating in helping people connect. One of the things recently, we have a sales force who's out there trying to sell, and they're also receiving feedback constantly from the customers. And we have a product team who's trying to build a product that the sales team loves and can sell us into every single dental office that is out there. And when you get into the day-to-day, you can start to get a little bit of a rub, right? It comes back to that communication. We're communicating constantly, and so at our on-site, we had everybody in. That included all of our sales force. And I know that is a big lift. That was 3 days. We had our sales force that was not out in the field selling. Yes. But we sat our product team down with our sales team. They spent half a day together that they would have not done. It's in a room. It's a lot harder to be distracted by Slack messages and team meetings and your cell phone and everything else when you're in the room together. And every time we do that, they come out like they're best buds again, right? Because over time, that just kind of that rub, or you're misinterpreting how someone is approaching you, or you're getting frustrated because you're asking the same question over and over again. Bringing people together and creating that space for them to have 3 to 4 hours together to talk through, what does a dental office really want? To talk through, what does it actually take to build what you're asking me to build, and have that cohesion and that understanding, as well as creating those spaces. We brought in breakfast, which creates just natural conversation to talk about, how are you? How's your family? Do you have any big plans for this summer? Those types of connections allows us to work through some of those not so pleasant moments that we're going to have together, or while we're working through items. And so bringing them together, like I said, we do it in person because we feel the impact from having people in person. You can do things like that virtually too. You can have people stop for 3 to 4 hours in a given day and have teams connect. Again, you just have to create it, and you have to be intentional in how you structure it.
I'm one of those people like you that loves that in-person stuff, because it feels like, especially in HR, it feels like it's that much more valuable to really get at, hey, while you're here, can I ask you a question? Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm always here for. But if while you're here, sure, do it. Or that bit of extra time where we spend getting to know someone behind the job title, behind the pay rate, behind the whatever else they do, the project, because you have that time in person. When you are on a Zoom call or a Teams call, right? It's like next to next to next.
Yep.
And it's, listen, I don't know who decided that work can only get done in 30-minute blocks, Emma, but like, getting to know you a little bit, that's gone. And so that's one of the things that I love, the in-person stuff. And I actually was talking to our team just about this the other day, because one of our people is not in the country. She's based elsewhere. I'm like, how are we going to get you here sometime this year with all of us, so we're together as a group, because we're better together. And so thinking about something you're talking about here, I'm filtering that through the lens of, how are we doing this for our own team, trying to make sure this is happening. And so that gives me some encouragement that we're on the right track. I want to ask you one last thing. You've sort of touched on this a little bit here, but I'd love to hear your take on this. One of the big theme this year, we do a theme every year for summer school, is that the future of work is human. Because I keep seeing all these headlines about all the cool AI stuff and everything else. And sure, it's great, but we're talking about that like the human part doesn't matter anymore. And so I'd love to hear from you. What does it mean to you when I say the future of work is human?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. And taking time to reflect on that, I think we all should stop and pause, take a minute, like we've talked about throughout this session, and just really reflect on what does that mean. I want to hit on a couple of things. So first off, the future of work is human does not mean technology or AI won't dramatically reshape work. It is already happening. Work is already significantly changing. I think we're in the middle of one of the biggest workplace transformations that we'll experience in our lifetime. It is fundamentally changing how work gets done. It's getting done faster, and it's even reshaping the type of work that humans should be spending their time on. So I really think it's important that companies have to lean into it. I would not recommend avoiding it. It's coming, it's here to stay. These tools can really optimize work in ways that are incredibly powerful and really life-changing. But where I think the human part comes in is this: the more technology accelerates work, the more important human-centered leadership becomes. Behind every innovation, every breakthrough, every creative solution, there is still a human being, a human who felt psychologically safe enough to challenge an idea, think differently, or imagine a better way of doing something. So technology may accelerate execution, but humans are still driving creativity, judgment, empathy, innovation, trust, and overall the vision. And so I think it's really, really important to remember that, because without a human, none of this would have happened.
I'm going to have to go back through and replay this spot again because I have to get all those pieces there you shared. I love your answer to that, Emma. I love your heart behind it. You can hear your passion for the people overall, right? The people of wealth that obviously are benefiting from you being there, but everyone can hear that passion about the importance of people, especially now more than ever. So thank you for sharing that. If someone wants to connect with you, is LinkedIn the best way to do that?
Yes, LinkedIn's going to be the best way to do that. You can direct message me, send me a friend request. Would love to grow my network.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure and tag that into the comments here so people can reach out and connect with you. Thank you again for joining us today, for your passion for the topic of connection, helping people as they grow, making sure the company takes care of the people and gives them an environment where they can feel safe to do their best work, to show up with ideas, to raise their hand when there's a challenge, and to just really connect with each other in a meaningful sort of way. Thank you again for sharing that. For all the rest of you, stay tuned for more Summer School coming right up. Yeah. All right, George, we're wrapping up here towards the end. I told you all, like, there's some good connections there between what Emma was sharing and what we covered the rest of the time. I thought she did a great job of tying those together. I wanted her to talk about connection, and we ended up going so far beyond that, but she had some great takeaways. George, anything in there stand out for you before we pull our slides up and do our quick wrap up for the day?
I'll just say this. When I think about when she started talking about the connection piece, Ben, I always relate it to like a TV, right? And not the modern TVs that we have today, but think about when we grew up, when we were the remote controls, and we had to get up and turn the knob.
And that clicking knob.
If that connection wasn't right, you had another small knob that you had to get right to really just kind of get that right connection piece so that there was clarity in there. And so often we need just a little bit of turn. We need just a touch, right? We need just to turn it around a little bit. And I want to encourage people today, if you walk away from anything, remember that power is in connection. We were born connected to our mothers. We were born connected. Like we need each other. I always think about the statement, one can, do 1,000, but two can do 10,000 flights. So like the power of unity is incredible. And when I think about the community award winners that we had over the past, the calm, the communication, the unity, how that really comes together as a word. That's my rant. She said it all. She said a great, perfect ending.
I don't think that was a rant. That was a rave, George. That was a rave.
A rave. There we go. I like that.
So
give me a acronym for rave. The students been great. The students at acronym, so
they're picking up the slack,
has been good today. So rave. rave in the chat. Let's see what we got for the acronym.
So if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. And speaking of together, tomorrow we have some incredible speakers. We're going to, what's fun for me is I scheduled Shane and Mike at separate times, but each of them are going to talk about how we can collaborate across functional lines. Shane with finance, how do we speak finance? And then Mike, actually, I did not know this. I've known Mike for years. He's a former CIO. And so we're talking about the technology side and all those things, because there are companies now, like it or not, there are companies now that say, okay, we're combining parts of IT and parts of HR because these agent things are now going to be part of how we look at our org chart and our hierarchy. Again, like it or not, that's the real. And so Mike and I talk about some of the ways that we can connect with, look at, work alongside our CIOs. Jim is going to come to us and talk to us about how we can respect different generations, different perspectives of people at work. Zach and George had a great session. Again, one of those, I try to put George in a box, and all of you know that he doesn't stay in there for more than half a second. And so he and Zach kind of covered the realm of leadership and conversation there. David and I come back with one last session talking about some other practical things we can do to filter through candidates and to make sure you're not getting caught by a fake candidate or someone using AI to try to cheat, like how to catch those people. We talked about some of that. And then Tyrese and I are going to wrap up tomorrow with a session around engagement and how they do it at NASCAR, where he works. And I gave a sneak peek earlier, but he actually pulls out a physical note that he got from someone else to talk about the importance of giving and receiving those things. So it was fun, George, when y'all were talking during the bucket list session. That's what I was thinking, like, okay, Tyrese is going to actually do that during the session tomorrow and show that off in his hand about how impactful that was. So great sessions tomorrow. George, we have one more slide here just as a thank you and a wrap up. Give us 30 seconds and we'll call it for the day.
Yeah, thank you to everybody, our partners. I wouldn't blame them. I was like, where are we going with this? Special shout out once again to our lovely partners, iSolve. I want to thank you to Hi Bob, Verify First Employee, who we heard from today, Bucket List, that we have as well. Then we got some incredible sessions coming up tomorrow as well, and that I'm excited about. Take Command as well earlier to kick us off. And so we want to thank all of our wonderful sponsors. We want to thank you. We want to thank all those who've been joining us live here. Again, 500 people in our platform, another 400 or 500 people on LinkedIn. We got our platform on YouTube. Congratulations on all the YouTube. This is probably one of our biggest audience on our YouTube channel that I've seen. The comments are coming in. So we want to say shout out to you for being a part of this. Y'all stuck through it from start to finish. And we want to say thank you and appreciation. My last words, because I've never talked about shoes, Ben, but I'm going to talk about these. No emotions are emotions. And so don't be afraid as humans to show your emotion. No emotions are emotions. Be happy, be sad, be Ben, be George, be HR Summer School. Until tomorrow.
Yeah, be the best you can be. All right. Thank you all again for joining us. We're grateful as always for not just you for showing up, but for participating, for being engaged. I told someone yesterday how many comments that we had, and their eyes about fell out of their head. They couldn't believe it. And so it's because all of you are here chiming in, being supportive. We have a list of people to give some things away to tomorrow. We're already running over today, so we're trying to be smart with that. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you, and we'll see you again tomorrow for day 3, final day of HR Summer School 2026. Be blessed.
We want to thank everybody for joining us today on this live stream.
For more information, you can find our website at lhra.io.